Chapter 864. The moment the three women entered the Gentle Breeze brothel, countless fiery gazes shot towards them from all directions. The three women had long since become accustomed to such gazes. Furthermore, they were not the least bit worried that these so-called young masters would harm them. The three women weren't vases, nor were they weak women who needed the protection of men at all times. Facing the owners of these fiery gazes, the three women weren't afraid of them. First of all, the combat power of the three women was far from what these ants could compare to. What's more, the backgrounds of the three women were all top-notch existences. Ancient Saint Ice Lotus and Ancient Saint Meng Jie, which one of them wasn't a top-notch figure in the Sky River continent. Facing these gazes, the three women remained calm. At the same time, a maid came up to the three women enthusiastically and respectfully bowed. Seeing this, 100 Flower Fairy said with a smile, "Are there any private rooms?" "Yes, please come with me." Hearing this, the maid was startled. Perhaps she was mesmerized by 100 Flower Fairy's smile, but after a moment, she came back to her senses. The first floor was the main hall, while the second floor was the private rooms. It was also a place that only those with status in the ancient Order City could use. As the largest city in the ancient sacred state, the ancient Order City could be said to be the gathering place of the most prominent group of people in the entire ancient sacred state. Not to mention others, just the saints of the ancient sacred sect, as well as the half-saint deacons, had settled their families in the ancient Order City. Because of this, the ancient Order City could be said to be a gathering place of great clans. Any random young master could be the descendant of a saint of the ancient sacred sect. Following behind the female servant, the three women quickly reached the second floor. Compared to the first floor, the second floor was clearly much quieter. Private rooms were arranged in an orderly manner. Some of the private rooms had their doors closed, while others had their doors open. Just as the three women were walking towards a private room at the back, a luxuriously dressed young man suddenly walked out of one of the private rooms and just happened to brush past the three women. The arrogant young man was stunned the moment he saw Qin Shuru and the other two women. He couldn't take his eyes off them and stared at them. At this moment, another young man walked out from the private room and asked, "Young Master Wang, what happened to you? Beautiful. Too beautiful." Ignoring this person, the young master called young Master Wang looked at Qin Shuru and the other two girls with an infatuated expression and spoke with a lecherous expression. As he spoke, young Master Wang strode towards the three ladies and followed closely behind them into the private room. Just as Qin Shuru and the other two ladies were seated in the private room, young Master Wang strode in with his lackeys. He pretended to be gentle and smiled. Then, he cupped his hands and bowed to the three ladies. "I am Wang Ben, a member of the ancient Era City's Wang clan. The old ancestor of my clan is an elder of the ancient sage sect. Today, I have the honor of meeting the three young misses. May I have the honor of sharing a drink with the three young misses?" Wang Ben took the initiative to protect his family. He thought that Qin Shuru and the other two ladies would take the bait obediently after hearing that their ancestor was an elder of the ancient sage sect. After all, an elder of the ancient sage sect meant that he was a saint. Unfortunately, after hearing about Wang Ben's family background, the three ladies didn't change their expressions at all, as if they didn't care at all. Regarding this, Wang Ben's skin was extremely thick. Without waiting for the three women to reply, he had already sat down. As for the lackeys behind him, under his signal, they immediately left the private room and obediently guarded the door, not allowing anyone to enter. He had never seen women as beautiful as the three ladies. Facing Wang Ben, Qin Shuru's face turned gloomy. She was ready to attack, but Flower Fairy stopped her and smiled at Wang Ben. "Young Master Wang, we sisters can't be called ladies anymore. Just call us ladies." Qin Shuru and the other two ladies were already married to Xiao Chen, so they couldn't be called ladies anymore. Hearing Flower Fairy's words, Wang Ben was stunned. He didn't expect the three ladies to be married already. But so what? Wang Ben wouldn't care even if such beautiful ladies were already pregnant, let alone married. Immediately, Wang Ben laughed in an unconcerned manner. So that's how it is. Then, I was rude just now. However, I wonder which 3 men are so fortunate to be able to obtain such lovely wives like the 3 madams. Young Master Wang must be joking. The 3 of us sisters served the same husband. Flower Fairy smiled. Originally, he thought that Flower Fairy and the other 2 were married to 3 different men. After all, being able to marry one of these 3 women was already the envy of others. But after hearing Flower Fairy's words, it turned out that the 3 women were actually married to the same man. For a moment, Wang Ben felt as if there were 10,000 horses galloping wildly in his heart. Jealousy flashed across his eyes. Who was it? What kind of man could be so lucky? Unknowingly, Wang Ben was already jealous of Xiao Chen. Flower Fairy saw it all, but her smile didn't diminish. My husband should be here soon. 100 Flower Fairy's words were obviously meant for Wang Ben. Hearing this, Wang Ben suppressed the jealousy in his heart and said with a fake smile, "That's great. Then I can see what kind of person can gain the favor of 3 madams at the same time, haha." Wang Ben put on a fake smile. At the same time, he had already made up his mind. No matter what method he had to use, he had to obtain Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls. Only he, Wang Ben, was worthy of such women. Wang Ben thought that he hid it well, but he didn't know that Qin Shuru and the other 2 ladies had already guessed his thoughts. Soon after, Flower Fairy secretly used a sound transmission talisman to inform Xiao Chen. In the cave abode of the first sacred palace of the ancient sacred sect, the sky had already turned completely dark. However, Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls still had not returned. Just as Xiao Chen was secretly feeling annoyed, a voice-transmitting charm flew over. Seeing that it was a sound transmission talisman from Flower Fairy, Xiao Chen was delighted at first. But after reading the contents of the sound transmission talisman, Xiao Chen's smile completely froze. Anger flashed across his eyes. Young Master Wang? Bullshit. You dare to covet my women? Good, very good. He was already in a bad mood. Wang Ben had bumped into the muzzle of a gun. No, it should be said that he had been schemed against by Flower Fairy. The 3 ladies didn't directly deal with Wang Ben because they wanted to let Xiao Chen go to the ancient order city. It was laughable that Wang Ben didn't know about this. He thought that he could do whatever he wanted with the help of his ancestor. Little did he know that in the eyes of Xiao Chen and the 3 ladies, an elder of the ancient sacred sect wasn't worthy of being feared. Chapter 5. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 865. 100 Flower Fairy did this on purpose. Her goal was to make Xiao Chen go to ancient order city. Xiao Chen, who was in a fit of anger, didn't care about anything else. He didn't even reply to 100 Flower Fairy's letter. Xiao Chen angrily rushed to ancient order city by himself. There was a transportation array in the ancient sacred sect that led to ancient order city. It was already late at night, so Xiao Chen arrived at the transportation array alone. Seeing Xiao Chen, the half-saint deacon in charge of guarding the transportation array asked with a smile, "Prospective holy disciple Xiao Chen, where are you going by yourself?" "I'm going to beat someone up." Xiao Chen didn't even think before replying. He ordered someone to activate the transportation array and directly disappeared. It could be said that he came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Even after Xiao Chen left, the half-saint deacon still hadn't recovered from his shock. Go beat someone up? Beat who up? While Xiao Chen was rushing to ancient order city, in a private room on the 2nd floor of the Wind Restaurant, Wang Ben was chatting with the 3 women in what he thought was a graceful manner. However, what made Wang Ben depressed was that the attitude of the 3 women had taken a 180-degree turn. Even 100 Flower Fairy, who was chatting with him with a smile, was ignoring him now. Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao were treating him like air. If it was 100 Flower Fairy who stopped him, the 2 women would have already thrown him out. Wang Ben didn't know what was going on with the three women. He only thought that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Little did he know that Hundred Flower Fairy had already sent a letter to Xiao Chen, and that Xiao Chen was probably already on his way to the Wind Restaurant. Thus, there was no need to say anything more to Wang Ben. He was completely ignored by the three women. However, young Master Wang was a veteran who had been indulging in women for many years. How could he retreat from such a small scene? Moreover, he had never seen such peerless beauties like Qin Shuru and the other two women. No matter what, he couldn't give up. Young Master Wang made full use of the advantage of his thick skin. He spoke leisurely as if he knew everything from the heavens to the earth. Little did he know, his words had already made the three girls not know whether to laugh or cry. To put it bluntly, Wang Ben was just a hedonistic young master of the Wang clan. His cultivation talent was lacking, so he couldn't join the ancient sacred sect. Thus, he could only rely on the protection of his ancestors to eat and wait for death in Ancient Order City. Therefore, Wang Ben didn't know anything about astronomy and geography. In his entire life, the furthest he had been was wandering around the ancient Saint Province. He had never even been to the other three provinces. Therefore, in the eyes of the three women, his knowledge was no different from a frog at the bottom of a well. He only wanted to win a smile from the beauty, but he didn't know that danger was slowly approaching. At this moment, on the first floor of the Gentle Wind Restaurant, a handsome young man wearing a white robe strode in. The young man's aura was very similar to the three women when they had first appeared. As soon as the young man appeared, many young women in the restaurant looked over, their eyes flashing with infatuation. However, the young man didn't care about these gazes. He called over a maid and coldly asked, "Did the three women come here just now?" The young man was naturally Xiao Chen. At this moment, there was a ball of fire in his heart, so Xiao Chen's tone was somewhat unfriendly. Hearing this, the maid respectfully told Xiao Chen the private room Qin Shuru and the others were in. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't say anything and directly went to the second floor. Not knowing that danger had arrived, Wang Ben was still leisurely chatting in the private room. But at this moment there was a sudden loud bang. A black shadow flew in from outside the door, directly smashing through the door. This sudden turn of events made Wang Ben quiver in fright. Looking carefully, he discovered that the black shadow that had flown in was actually his lackey who had been guarding the door. Following this loud bang, Xiao Chen strode into the private room and saw Wang Ben sitting at the same table as the three women. At the same time, Wang Ben also looked at Xiao Chen. The two of them looked at each other. As a standard hedonistic young master, Wang Ben naturally couldn't tolerate this kind of thing, so before Xiao Chen could speak, Wang Ben shouted first. "Kid, who are you? Do you want to die? Do you know who I am?" He absolutely couldn't lose face in front of women, so at this moment, Wang Ben was full of vigor. However, he was arrogant, but Xiao Chen was even more arrogant. If it were any other time, Xiao Chen might talk nonsense with him. But now, Xiao Chen obviously wasn't in the mood. As Wang Ben's voice fell, he didn't wait for Xiao Chen's answer. Instead, he waited for a fist. Xiao Chen didn't say anything and directly punched out, accurately hitting Wang Ben's face. In an instant, several bloody teeth flew out, mixed with blood, snot, and saliva splattered everywhere. It was completely unexpected that Xiao Chen would actually hit someone without saying a word. And it wasn't over yet. A fist landed, followed by a kick, directly kicking Wang Ben to the ground. Even so, Xiao Chen still didn't vent his anger and fiercely stomped on Wang Ben twice. How could Wang Ben, who was only in the celestial realm, be Xiao Chen's opponent? Xiao Chen was still holding back. Otherwise, one punch would be enough to kill Wang Ben directly. Looking at Wang Ben, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, Xiao Chen said coldly, "I don't care who you are. Today, I just want to beat someone." After saying that, he kicked Wang Ben out of the private room. After fiercely teaching Wang Ben a lesson, Xiao Chen sat down at the table, still angry, and said to 100-Flower Fairy and the other two women in a bad mood. "Good, you are very good. What is the meaning of this? Do you want to give me a hat to wear?" His words were full of jealousy. Xiao Chen was already in a bad mood today, and the three women were eating at the same table with another man. This made Xiao Chen very unhappy. Of course, if it was under normal circumstances, Xiao Chen would never have such a big reaction. Xiao Chen knew very well that the three women would never betray him. Moreover, even if the three women had a change of heart, they would never take a fancy to a trash like Wang Ben. However, trust was trust, jealousy was still needed. Especially when he thought about how he was cultivating alone in the cave today, Xiao Chen couldn't control the jealousy in his heart. Seeing Xiao Chen's unhappy expression, the three women all burst into laughter. Gu Lingyao's pair of cute big eyes twinkled as she said with a bright smile, "Are you jealous? What, you have already sat at the same table with another man behind my back. Can't I be jealous?" Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chen still said angrily. Seeing that Xiao Chen was really angry, Gu Lingyao hurriedly restrained her smile and came to Xiao Chen's side. She obediently pulled Xiao Chen's arm and said, "We didn't. This guy came in by himself. Originally, Sister Shui Ro wanted to chase him away, but Sister 100-Flower said that she wanted you to do it yourself. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 866. Gu Lingyao coquettishly pulled Xiao Chen's arm and swung it back and forth, with a sweet smile on her face. Hearing her words, coupled with this little girl's extremely lethal cuteness, Xiao Chen's resentment instantly dissipated by a lot. The three girls were Xiao Chen's most beloved ones. To be honest, Xiao Chen really couldn't bring himself to be angry at them. Although his anger had dissipated, Xiao Chen still kept a straight face and said, "Say it, what did you call me here for?" Just now, that Wang Ben was done on purpose by 100-Flower Fairy. Otherwise, why would she ask him to come? With the strength of the three girls, they could easily crush Wang Ben. In response to Xiao Chen's question, 100-Flower Fairy smiled faintly and said, "There is indeed something I want to talk to you about. It just so happens that the environment here is not bad." After not seeing 100-Flower Fairy for so many years, she had become even more gentle and pleasant. Hearing her words, Xiao Chen poured himself a glass of wine and took a sip. "What is it? Say it. Why are you acting so mysterious?" Hearing this, 100-Flower Fairy laughed. "Husband, it's actually not a big deal. I just want to set some rules with you." "3 rules?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen could vaguely guess what 100-Flower Fairy wanted to say. As expected, without waiting for Xiao Chen to reply, 100-Flower Fairy continued. This time, because of Gu Lingyao's matter, Qin Shuru and 100-Flower Fairy were indeed unhappy. Of course, it wasn't just them. Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao were the same. The three girls were all proud and arrogant people. Their appearances were all top-notch. To be honest, how could such proud girls be willing to share their husband with other girls? Needless to say, Qin Shuiro and 100-Flower Fairy already knew each other in the heavenly Chen continent, so they had already acknowledged each other. However, it would be difficult for them to accept Gu Lingyao. However, things had already come to this point, and looking at Xiao Chen, it was obviously impossible for him to give up on Gu Lingyao. At the same time, after spending a few days together, the two women also found Gu Lingyao to be very cute and kind-hearted. Moreover, the three girls talked a lot today. Unknowingly, Qin Shuru and 100-Flower Fairy gradually accepted Gu Lingyao. However, the three girls also agreed that there were some things that they couldn't let Xiao Chen do as he pleased. For example, the problem of women. Xiao Chen already had 3 girls by his side. If they continued to ignore him, who knows how many sisters Xiao Chen would find back for them. Therefore, the 3 girls' opinions on this matter were surprisingly consistent. They couldn't let Xiao Chen do as he pleased. Because of this, the three girls decided to set 3 conditions with Xiao Chen. And this so-called increasing 3 chapters, to put it bluntly, is the agreement between the 3 girls. Bai Hua Fairy chuckled and said, "First, in the future, without our knowledge, you can't have any intimate contact with other girls. Second, from now on, except for the necessary items, you must hand over all your spirit stones and gold coins to us for safekeeping. Third, if you violate the above 2 conditions, the 3 of us have the right to punish you." It was a very simple 3 conditions. However, these seemingly simple 3 conditions almost completely blocked Xiao Chen's path of picking up girls in the future. Not to mention the first condition, just the second one, all his spirit stones and gold coins must be handed over. This meant that from now on, Xiao Chen would be a pauper. No matter how many spirit stones he had, he would have to hand them over to 100 Flower Fairy and the other 2 girls. Hearing 100 Flower Fairy's words, he looked at Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao. The 2 girls also nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Xiao Chen felt a little depressed. However, he didn't refuse and still nodded in agreement. Actually, if you say that Xiao Chen was a playboy, he might be, but he definitely wasn't the kind of person who flirted everywhere. Whether it was with Qin Shuru 100 Flower Fairy or Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen had a foundation of feelings with them. Everyone had experienced a lot together before they got together. He wasn't like other men who couldn't move after seeing a girl. Therefore, Xiao Chen didn't have much resistance to 100 Flower Fairy's 3 conditions. Xiao Chen didn't plan to find any other girls in the first place. To be able to gain the favor of the 3 girls, in Xiao Chen's eyes, this was already a blessing from the heavens. Moreover, in this world, which girl could be more beautiful than the 3 girls in front of him? Since he didn't want the treasures, why did he have to pick up trash outside? Xiao Chen didn't have such a hobby. It was precisely because he didn't have such thoughts that Xiao Chen readily agreed. However, in the end, Xiao Chen still asked a question. "That, I'm a man. If I don't even have a single spirit stone on me, wouldn't I be a joke when I go out? If I don't even have the money to treat my friends to a drink, wouldn't that be embarrassing? As for the second condition, shouldn't you reconsider?" Xiao Chen didn't have any objections to the first and second conditions. However, the second condition was indeed a bit of a pain in the ass. He was a man after all. If he didn't even have a single spirit stone on him, wouldn't that be embarrassing? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the 3 girls looked at each other. Then, Gu Lingyao muttered softly with a thoughtful expression. "That seems to be the case. Hubby, you're a man. If you don't even have a single spirit stone on you, that would be embarrassing. Even if it's embarrassing, it's still better than bringing a few more girls home, right? Sister Lingyao, don't be fooled by him." However, just as Gu Lingyao finished speaking, Qin Shuru spoke up. "Men change when they have money. Therefore, Xiao Chen definitely couldn't have any spirit stones on him." This was the result of the discussion between 100 Flower Fairy and the other 2 girls. Seeing Qin Shuru's resolute expression, as if there was no room for negotiation, Xiao Chen was depressed. He wanted to say something but was directly interrupted by Qin Shuru. "Say no more, we won't agree. Moreover, hubby has us. What's the point of having money on him?" This sentence directly shut Xiao Chen up. At the same time, 100 Flower Fairy also opened her mouth to agree. "What Shuru said is right. Moreover, hubby has entrusted the money to the 3 of us for safekeeping. It's not like we won't give it to hubby. If hubby really needs money, just tell us honestly and we'll naturally give it to hubby. Could it be that in hubby's eyes, the 3 of us don't know the big picture?" Alright, after hearing 100 Flower Fairy's words, what else could Xiao Chen say? He couldn't resist at all. Then, the 3 girls acted on their words. On the spot, they made Xiao Chen hand over all the spirit stones and gold coins in his space ring. They only left some necessary pills and talismans for Xiao Chen. Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendations, rewards. End of chapter. Chapter 867. After handing over all his spirit stones and gold coins to the three women, Xiao Chen's space ring instantly became empty, leaving only some pills, talismans, and the ink dragon sword. With a bitter face, Xiao Chen returned to his seat and gulped down large mouthfuls of wine. It felt as if he was going to finish a year's worth of wine in one go. There was nothing he could do about it. He was now poor, so poor that he could not even find a single gold coin. What did it mean to say that his pockets were cleaner than his face? That was exactly what Xiao Chen meant. Looking at Xiao Chen's aggrieved face, Gu Lingyao pulled Xiao Chen's hand and smiled. All right, there's still our share. Big brother Xiao Chen may not have money, but we do. In the future, whatever big brother Xiao Chen wants, Lingyao can buy it for you. The little girl had a bright smile on her face. Hearing this, Xiao Chen wanted to cry but had no tears. What was this? Was he using his own money to support himself? When he thought about how he would have to report to the three women in front of him for instructions no matter what he wanted to buy in the future, Xiao Chen felt that his future was dark. He lowered his head and continued to drink. At the same time, Xiao Chen secretly made a decision in his heart. No, I'll be in charge of my future. Damn it, it's just that I don't have money. It looks like I'll have to think of a way to hide some money in the future. Xiao Chen's temperament was naturally not comparable to that of an ordinary person. He quickly pulled himself together. At this time, this fellow was already thinking about how to hide his money in the future. This was called having a political strategy and a countermeasure. After successfully establishing a 3-point agreement with Xiao Chen, the three women's moods clearly improved a lot. At the same time, their relationship with each other also became much closer. This made Xiao Chen feel very gratified. After all, they were all his women. If they were hostile to each other all day long, Xiao Chen would really have a headache. But now, it seemed that this problem did not exist. They happily sat together, eating and chatting. As for Wang Ben's matter, it had long been thrown to the back of their minds. However, while the four of them didn't care about Wang Ben didn't think the same way. Previously, he had been violently beaten up by Xiao Chen without saying a word and then kicked out of the private room. Wang Ben had immediately contacted his family. Wang Ben's Wang clan was one of the top clans in the ancient Order City. There was nothing that could be done about it. The old ancestor of the Wang clan was a saint of the ancient saint sect. Just this point alone was not something that ordinary clans could compare with. Wang Ben had never suffered such a huge loss in ancient Order City. He swore that he would definitely teach Xiao Chen a lesson. About an hour later, the guards of the Wang family, as well as Wang Ben's father, hurriedly arrived at the Gentle Wind restaurant. They directly climbed to the second floor and saw Wang Ben lying in the corridor. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of Mo Yan's mouth, and his hair was a mess. Mo Yan was in a miserable state. Seeing this, Wang Ben's father hurriedly walked over and asked with concern, "Ben, are you all right? Don't scare me." Wang Ben was the only son, so he had been spoiled by his parents since he was young. Of course, Wang Ben's father wasn't a big shot in the Wang clan. However, they were still direct descendants of the Wang clan, so they still had some say in the Wang clan. As a matter of fact, Wang Ben's father had brought over a dozen guards of the Wang clan with a sound transmission talisman. He had even brought along a Peak Dao sovereign of the Wang clan. Seeing that his father had arrived, Wang Ben didn't know where he got the strength from, but he actually stood up shakily. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at the private room where Xiao Chen and the others were. He gnashed his teeth and said, "Father, I'm going to kill that little bastard." All right. I'll definitely kill him to avenge you," Wang Ben's father said without hesitation. Perhaps in the eyes of the father and son, it was fine to kill someone like Xiao Chen. So what if he was a disciple of the ancient saint sect? The Wang clan's ancestor was a saint. As they spoke, Wang Ben walked out of the private room with the help of his father. Just like Xiao Chen, a guard of the Wang clan kicked the door open. Then, a group of people filed in and instantly surrounded Xiao Chun and the others. After being surrounded by a group of Wang clan guards, Wang Ben and his father walked in. Seeing Qin Shuru and the other two girls in the private room, Wang Ben's father was stunned. Such beautiful girls were really rare in the world. A look of infatuation flashed across his eyes, but Wang Ben's father was an old man. He was naturally more shrewd, so he didn't show his infatuation. Instead, he turned to look at Xiao Chun. Wang Ben's father's face naturally darkened when he saw Xiao Chun. He said with faint killing intent, "You're the one who injured my son?" Xiao Chun drank a mouthful of wine before turning to look at the father and son. Xiao Chun hadn't killed Wang Ben earlier. Although it wouldn't have been a big deal if he killed Wang Ben, Xiao Chun wouldn't kill someone over such a small matter. Since he didn't kill Wang Ben, he naturally didn't fear the Wang clan's revenge. So, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "I'm already giving your Wang clan face by not killing him." There was no panic in his voice at all. Wang Ben's father's face darkened. What an arrogant brat! He actually dared to act so arrogantly in front of the Wang clan. He silently glanced at an old man beside him. This old man was a guest that Wang Ben's father had brought from the Wang clan. He was a great perfection Dao sovereign. This kind of cultivation wasn't considered much in the ancient sacred sect, but it was an indispensable backbone of the major clans in ancient Order City. Wang Ben's father didn't doubt the strength of this guest at all. When he saw Wang Ben's father glance at him, the guest took a step forward. A pressure unique to Dao sovereigns spread out and pressed down on Xiao Chun. In the guest's opinion, Xiao Chun was so young. How high could his cultivation be? He wanted to use his might to pressure Xiao Chun, but it was a pity that Xiao Chun remained calm and composed under the pressure of the worshipper's might. His expression remained unchanged. The worshipper's heart froze in response. He seemed to have vaguely guessed something. Unlike trash like Wang Ben and his father, this guest was able to cultivate to the Dao sovereign realm. Naturally, he wasn't a good-for-nothing. At the same time, he had a good understanding of the situation in the Tianhe continent. He knew that there was only one explanation for someone of Xiao Chun's age to be so calm under his pressure. Xiao Chun was at least a prospective holy son. If not, Xiao Chun definitely wouldn't be able to resist his pressure. When he thought that Xiao Chun might be a prospective holy son, the guest panicked a little. However, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Get lost. If you don't accept it, you can ask your ancestor to come here personally. The few of you aren't qualified. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 868. Ask your old ancestor to come. As soon as Xiao Chun said this, Wang Ben and his son were immediately enraged. In the eyes of the father and son, no, in the eyes of the entire Wang family, the Wang family's old ancestor was a godlike figure. Anyone who dared to slight him in the slightest would definitely incur the wrath of the Wang family. There was no need to doubt the Wang family's yearning for the old ancestor. It was very simple. The reason the Wang family could become a famous family in the ancient Order City, and even in the entire ancient sacred sect, was because of their old ancestor. It was precisely because the Wang family had a sage realm old ancestor that the Wang family was able to stand tall without falling and become increasingly powerful. Seeing that Xiao Chun didn't put their old ancestor in his eyes, Wang Ben and his son immediately shouted angrily, "Brat, you are courting death." The father and son scolded in unison. However, the consecrator didn't speak at this time, because he had already faintly sensed that something was wrong. From the beginning to the end, Xiao Chun's calmness didn't seem to be fake. Instead, he had his own confidence. This confidence made Xiao Chun not afraid of the Wang family, or even the Wang family's old ancestor. In the ancient sacred sect, and even the entire Tianhe continent's younger generation, how many people could be unafraid of a sage realm expert? Setting aside their backgrounds, only the holy sons and holy daughters were qualified to do so. Could it be that Xiao Chen was a holy son? Guessing in his heart, the consecrator suddenly panicked. If Xiao Chen was really a holy son, then things would really be troublesome. The consecrator guessed that Xiao Chen might be a holy son, but his guess was obviously wrong. Xiao Chen wasn't a holy son yet, but his identity was more terrifying than a holy son. There was also Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers, whose identities were also more terrifying than a holy son. The consecrator had already sensed that something was wrong. It was laughable that Wang Ben and his son didn't notice it at all. They were still cursing Xiao Chen, especially Wang Ben's father, who kept urging the consecrator to take action, wanting to directly kill Xiao Chen. However, in the face of Wang Ben's father's urging, the consecrator whispered, "This brat's identity shouldn't be simple. If we act rashly, I'm afraid it will be difficult to end." The consecrator was afraid of Xiao Chen's identity. However, Wang Ben's father didn't care. In his opinion, what identity could Xiao Chen have? The father and son knew quite a few of the big clans in the ancient Era City, but they had never seen someone like Xiao Chen before. Since Xiao Chen, Wang and his father's father, what did they have to be afraid? Xiao Chen's Wang's father's olds? Ben's father's father to end of its end? This kid is definitely deliberately mystifying things. Attack. If you kill him, I'll take responsibility. That's right, this brat is definitely trying to be mysterious. Beat him up ruthlessly. Hearing his father's words, Wang Ben also echoed from the side. The father and son shouted furiously. At the same time, Xiao Chen took out his identity token from his space ring and tossed it to the consecrator. "If you don't piss off in 3 breaths, I'll kill you." He couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on Wang Ben and his son. As for the consecrator, he was stunned on the spot after receiving Xiao Chen's token. The token was the holy scion of the ancient sacred sect. Of course, if that was all, the consecrator wouldn't have been stunned on the spot. Although the status of a holy scion was noble, there was still quite a gap between them and a holy scion. If Xiao Chen was merely an ordinary holy scion, the Wang family wouldn't be too afraid of him. After all, the ancestor of the Wang family was a saint of the ancient sacred sect. What truly stunned the consecrator was the 2 large characters engraved on the back of the token, Xiao Chen. That's right. It really was those 2 characters that had stunned the consecrator. Who was Xiao Chen? He was the first holy scion of the ancient sacred sect. Moreover, as a consecrator of the Wang family, he obviously knew many secrets that ordinary people would not know. He knew just how great Xiao Chen's status in the ancient sacred sect was. He was basically on par with the holy scion. When the ancient sacred sect opened its legacy, Randeng Kozai had given special treatment to Xiao Chen. The legacy he received was even greater than the holy scions and the other saints. This was more than enough to show how much Randeng Kozai valued Xiao Chen. As a matter of fact, the consecrator even vaguely remembered that the patriarch of the Wang family had mentioned Xiao Chen recently. It was said that even the ancestor of the Wang family praised Xiao Chen greatly. He even said that Xiao Chen would definitely become the 5th holy scion of the ancient sacred sect in the future. Moreover, even if Xiao Chen was not a holy scion yet, his status in the ancient sacred sect was already on par with the holy scions. At least, that was how it was in the eyes of the other saints. It could be said that they would rather offend a holy scion than offend Xiao Chen. The reason was very simple. This guy was Randeng Kozai's favorite. Who was Randeng Kozai? Even the ancestor of the Wang family had to respectfully address him as master. The palm-sized token in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 kilograms. After being stunned for a long time and listening to Wang Ben and his father cursing non-stop, the consecrator's face turned ashen. He hurriedly pulled Wang Ben's father's sleeve and said, "Stop talking. Stop talking. He's Xiao Chen." "What bullshit, Xiao Chen? Xiao? Who are you calling Xiao Chen?" Upon hearing the consecrator's words, Wang Ben's father didn't react at first and was about to curse. But halfway through, he reacted in an instant and said with a look of disbelief. Naturally, he had also heard about Xiao Chun. In an instant, the private room fell silent. Wang Ben's father and the consecrator looked at Xiao Chun in horror. At the same time, Xiao Chun extended his hand and gestured for the consecrator to return the token to him. Upon seeing this, the consecrator respectfully handed over the token with both hands and said cautiously, Young Master Xiao Chun, we have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please, after knowing Xiao Chen's identity, whether it was Wang Ben's father, or the consecrator's attitude took a 180-degree turn. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about their attitudes at all. Therefore, before the consecrator finished speaking, Xiao Chen directly interrupted. Scram. I will not pursue this matter today on account of your ancestor. If you are unconvinced, you can continue to look for me. But next time, it won't be so simple. When the time comes, even if your ancestor personally comes, I won't show you any mercy. We dare not. After offending young Master Xiao today, we are already terrified. How would we dare to continue pestering you? Thank you for your magnanimity, young Master Xiao. Wang Ben's father said with an apologetic smile. Speaking of which, these old men were indeed slick. Previously, they couldn't wait to tear him apart with their own hands. But now they were smiling flatteringly. Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with them and waved his hand. Seeing this, Wang Ben and his father repeatedly apologized and quickly left the private room with their people. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 869. Wang Ben and his son left with their group. This time, they had really kicked an iron plate. Xiao Chen's name had already spread throughout the city. Their Wang family might not necessarily be able to afford to offend him. They weren't in the mood to bicker with Wang Ben and his son. After the father and son left, Xiao Chen's group of 4 continued to eat and drink. They didn't take what had just happened to heart. Naturally, they weren't worried that the Wang family would seek revenge. It had to be said that a great reputation didn't require any servants. The Wind Restaurant was known as the #1 restaurant in Ancient Order City, so the dishes and wine here were really extraordinary. Let's talk about the dishes first. They were all made with heavenly treasures. Not only were they very beneficial to cultivators, but they also tasted very good. The wine was also brewed by the Wind Restaurant and couldn't be bought in the outside world. The fine wine and delicacies were indeed very good. However, while enjoying such fine wine and delicacies, the cost was naturally not cheap. Ordinary people simply couldn't afford it. However, this wasn't a problem for Xiao Chen's group of 4. Regardless of whether it was Xiao Chen, Qin Shuru, or the other 2 ladies, to put it bluntly, they had no concept of money. 4 people at their level, spiritual stones were just a number. What they valued more were the heavenly materials and earthly treasures that were hard to come by. Therefore, the 4 of them didn't care too much about spirit stones. After drinking to their heart's content, the 4 of them left the Wind Restaurant. However, when Xiao Chen called the waiter over to settle the bill, he was informed that Wang Ben and his son had already settled the bill. It was obvious that they were trying to curry favor with Xiao Chen because they had a guilty conscience. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about this. It was just a trivial meal. If Wang Ben and his son wanted to settle the bill, they could settle it for them. Xiao Chen swaggered out of the Wind Restaurant. This was his first time in Ancient Order City. Seeing that it was getting late, the 4 of them didn't plan on returning to the ancient sacred sect tonight. Instead, they decided to stay in Ancient Order City for the night and stroll around. When it came to shopping, the 3 women naturally raised their hands in approval. Especially with Xiao Chen accompanying them, it was even better. Needless to say, under the forceful pull of the 3 women, Xiao Chen once again began the glorious journey of accompanying his women to go shopping. And in the process, Xiao Chen finally understood what it meant to spend money like water. Those spirit stones in the hands of the three women were simply like glass beads. They didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache when using them. It wasn't until late at night that the three women finished shopping. The four of them found an inn to stay in and only returned to the ancient sacred sect at noon the next day. The only thing that made Xiao Chen depressed was that he didn't have a single cent in his pocket. It could be described as miserable. The days passed by peacefully. 3 days passed in a row. On this day, Randeng Kozai sent someone to inform him that the matter of Gu Lingyao devouring the moon god body was ready. Furthermore, the law realm could be opened. He asked Xiao Chen and the others to make a trip to Randeng Kozai's cave residence. After resting for a few days, Randeng Kozai and the others were finally ready. Xiao Chen immediately instructed the four women to look after the cave residence. Then, he led the three women to Randeng Kozai's cave residence. When Xiao Chen and the others arrived, Randeng Kozai, Ancient Saint Ice Lotus, and Ancient Saint Mengjie were already waiting in the cave residence. The three ancestors were sitting in the courtyard, but they didn't see Xiao Xing. Therefore, Xiao Chen asked, "Seniors, are the ancestors not here?" Xiao Xing is preparing to rebuild his physical body. He has been in seclusion for a while, but the next time you see him, he should have successfully revived. Ancient Saint Mengjie replied with a smile. She didn't put on the airs of an ancestor at all. Hearing Ancient Saint Mengjie's answer, Xiao Chen was secretly relieved. If Xiao Xing could successfully rebuild his physical body, it would be a good thing. He didn't delve into Xiao Xing's matter. After all, Xiao Chen couldn't help with this matter. He still had to test the ancestors. Randeng Kozai and the other two obviously didn't have any intention of getting entangled in this matter. As soon as Ancient Saint Mengjie's voice fell, Randeng Kozai changed the topic of discussion. Lingyao, the matter of devouring the moon god physique, has been prepared. Lin Shi has also been brought to the secret room by us. This time, you can cultivate in seclusion in my cave residence. The three of us will stand guard for you and help you successfully awaken the complete moon god physique. Everything was ready. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao bowed and thanked him. After talking about Gu Lingyao's matter, it was time to talk about Xiao Chen, Qin Shuru, and 100-Flower Fairy. The three of them were very simple. They didn't need anyone to stand guard. Now that the Law Secret Realm was ready to open, the three of them could enter at any time. As for whether the three of them could successfully comprehend the Law Force, that would depend on themselves. After letting Gu Lingyao stay in the cave residence, Randeng Kozai first brought Xiao Chen and the other two to the Law Secret Realm. After opening the Law Secret Realm for the three of them, he returned to stand guard for Gu Lingyao. The Law Secret Realm wasn't actually a micro-world. It was just a formation. However, this formation shouldn't be underestimated. It was called the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation. It was a top saint-grade formation. Every time it was opened, the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation could forcefully condense the law force between heaven and earth into the formation, deepening the cultivator's comprehension of the law force. It could be said that the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation was one of the best methods to comprehend the law force. However, every time the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation was opened, the price one had to pay was very high. Let's put it this way. For a sect as large as the ancient sacred sect, it would need to accumulate resources for at least 10 years to open the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation. Moreover, this could only be maintained for a month. In other words, for every month the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation was opened, the ancient sacred sect had to consume 10 years' worth of resources. Therefore, under normal circumstances, only the quasi-saints who were favored by the ancient sacred sect would have the opportunity to enter the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation to cultivate. This time, for the sake of Xiao Chen and the other two, the ancient sacred sect would open 3 10,000 Laws Sacred Formations at once. Of course, the Heavenly Sacred Sect and Ancient Saint Mengjie would share a lot of the resources for the Ancient Sacred Sect. After all, Qin Shuru and Flower Fairy weren't members of the Ancient Sacred Sect. If they wanted to use the 10,000 Laws Sacred Formation in the Ancient Sacred Sect, the resources they needed to consume would naturally be provided by their masters. In fact, the Ancient Sacred Sect only needed to provide the resources needed by Shaoqun. Of course, later on, Gu Lingyao would also need to be provided by the Ancient Sacred Sect. However, this wasn't a problem because Shao Sheng had already said that he would return these resources to the Ancient Sacred Sect after he reforged his body. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 870. In fact, it was not difficult to draw the Great Law Sacred Array, at least for the Ancient Sacred Sect. What was difficult was the huge amount of resources needed to activate the Great Law Sacred Array. This time, it seemed that he had put in a lot of effort. He took Shaoqun and the other two to a palace. From the outside, the palace did not seem to be anything special. However, when everyone walked into the palace, they found that the entire palace was divided into 5 separate secret rooms. Each of the 5 secret rooms represented a 10,000 Laws Sacred Array. Shaoqun and the other two each chose a secret room to enter. Then, Randeng Kozii personally activated the array for the 3 of them. It was a very simple secret room. In the entire secret room, there was only an extremely ordinary praying mat in the middle, after which golden light spots lit up all around the secret room. The light emitted by these golden light spots instantly illuminated the entire secret room. When the Great Law Sacred Array was activated, the power of law between heaven and earth was forcibly condensed into the array. Shaoqun, who was in the array, had an indescribable feeling. The power of law was completely different from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. What was the power of law? In layman's terms, it was the rules of heaven and earth. For example, there were only 24 hours in a day. The sun rose and set, and there were 4 seasons in a year. These were all the power of law. When a warrior comprehended the power of law, to put it bluntly, it was to surpass the rules of heaven and earth. It was like humans could not fly. However, when they cultivated to a certain level, they could fly. This was to break the rules of heaven and earth. When a warrior cultivated, he wanted to break the rules of heaven and earth at the beginning. In the end, he wanted to surpass the rules of heaven and earth. He could even borrow the power of the rules of heaven and earth. Because of this, sage-to-be, saints, and even holy sons had comprehended the power of law. They could borrow the power of the rules of heaven and earth to fight. This was why their battle strength was so strong. Inside the 10,000 Law Sacred Array, the greatest function of the 10,000 Law Sacred Array was to allow a martialist to directly sense the nomological laws of this realm. Why was fire hot? Why was ice cold? Why could water extinguish fire? These were all the effects of the laws of heaven and earth. It was precisely because of the existence of the laws of the heavens and earth that the world was able to maintain a stable circulation. To be more profound, time and space were actually a type of law of the heavens and earth. However, time and space were too profound, and even saints were unable to comprehend them. Of course, the current Shaoqun couldn't touch the level of time and space at all. Apart from touching the power of laws, Shaoqun only needed to comprehend it, and at the same time, be able to borrow the power of laws. There were many different kinds of laws in the world, and the laws that every cultivator comprehended were different. Some comprehended the laws of fire, some comprehended the laws of water, and so on. As for Qin Shuru and Bai Hua Fairy, they had special constitutions, so they had a unique advantage when it came to comprehending the laws. For example, Qin Shuru had the Ice Divine Constitution, so he was naturally superior to others when it came to comprehending the laws of ice. Bai Hua Fairy had the Dream Divine Constitution, so she had a unique advantage when it came to comprehending the laws of illusion. However, everything had its pros and cons. Qin Shuru and Bai Hua Fairy had an advantage when it came to comprehending the laws of ice, but at the same time, they also had a disadvantage. That was, apart from their unique advantage when it came to comprehending the laws of ice and illusion, there were huge limitations when it came to comprehending other laws. For example, Qin Shuru had the ice divine constitution. If he wanted to comprehend the laws of ice, it would naturally be twice the result with half the effort. However, if he wanted to comprehend the laws of fire, it would be extremely difficult. As for Xiao Chen's heavenly sword embryo, although it was not very helpful when it came to comprehending the laws, Xiao Chen was completely capable of comprehending all kinds of laws, unlike Qin Shuru and Bai Hua Fairy, who had limitations. Both of them had their pros and cons, and there was no difference between them. If one could comprehend a single law to the extreme, it would be an extremely terrifying thing. On the other hand, if one could comprehend multiple laws, it would naturally have its own unique advantages. Completely immersed in the laws, Xiao Chen closed his eyes tightly. At the same time, invisible and intangible laws surrounded Xiao Chen's body, gradually changing as Xiao Chen comprehended them. The first time one entered the 10,000 Laws sacred array, it could be said that it was the easiest to comprehend the laws. However, under normal circumstances, one could only comprehend a single law. However, this was not the case for Xiao Chen. As the days passed, Xiao Chen's comprehension of the laws grew deeper and deeper. At the same time, Xiao Chen had not only comprehended a single law, but two. They were the laws of force and the laws of speed. Comprehending two laws at the same time on his first contact with the laws was definitely something that had never happened in the history of the ancient sacred sect. Looking at the past saints and saintesses of the ancient sacred sect, they had comprehended a single law at most when they entered the 10,000 Laws sacred array for the first time. However, Xiao Chen had actually comprehended two laws at once. Moreover, from the looks of it, Xiao Chen was close to grasping the two laws. Perhaps in the opinion of many people, the laws of force and the laws of speed were not worth comprehending because compared to the laws of fire and the laws of lightning, the laws of force and the laws of speed were rather useless. Their offensive capabilities were far inferior to the laws of fire and the laws of lightning. However, as a sword cultivator, Xiao Chen knew very well how terrifying the laws of force and the laws of speed were. The most terrifying aspect of a sword cultivator was the 3-meter-long sword in his hand. Just imagine if he could comprehend the laws of force and the laws of speed. In the future, a casual swing of his sword would be several dozen times or even 100 times faster than his current strength and speed. How terrifying would that be? With that, would his lethality be inferior to the laws of fire and the laws of lightning? The laws of speed were getting denser by the day. 2 months had passed in the 10,000 Laws sacred array. During this period of time, a major event had happened in the ancient sacred sect. Randeng Kozai had accepted a disciple, and it was his last disciple. As the ancestor of the ancient sacred sect, Randeng Kozai had many disciples. More than half of the saints in the ancient sacred sect were Randeng Kozai's disciples. However, the fact that Randeng Kozai had accepted a last disciple surprised all the saints. After all, a last disciple and an ordinary disciple were two completely different things. A last disciple would be the last disciple of Randeng Kozai in his life. No one had expected that Randeng Kozai would suddenly announce that he had accepted a disciple. What was even more unexpected was that this disciple's identity was actually Gu Lingyao, a person that almost no saint knew much about. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 871. Randeng Kozai suddenly announced that he would accept Gu Lingyao as his last disciple. When the news came out, the entire ancient sacred sect was shocked. There was nothing they could do. Many disciples of the ancient sacred sect did not know who Gu Lingyao was. Even the saints had not heard of Gu Lingyao. Even so, Randeng Kozai announced that he would accept Gu Lingyao as his disciple. Everyone did not understand what Randang Kozai meant. In their eyes, shouldn't Randang Kozai accept Shao Chen as his disciple? He valued Shao Chen so much, but why did he accept Gu Lingyao as his disciple now? Moreover, he was his last disciple. Didn't this mean that Shao Chen would no longer be Randang Kozai's disciple in the future? Everyone was puzzled, but Ancient Saint Ice Lotus, Ancient Saint Mengjie, and the other ancestors knew very well that there was only one reason why Randang Kozai did not accept Shao Chen, and that was Shao Xing. Compared to Shao Xing was naturally more suitable to guide Shao Chen's cultivation. Moreover, Gu Lingyao had the moon god physique. Now, under the protection of the three ancestors, he used more than a month to successfully devour the other half of Lin Shi's moon god physique and successfully awakened the complete moon god physique. His talent was already comparable to Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. Randang Kozai naturally cherished such a genius. Moreover, Gu Lingyao did not have a master yet. Wasn't this a good thing? Gu Lingyao had no objections to ancient Saint Dipankara taking her in as a disciple. After obtaining the moon god physique, it was just as the ancestors had said. Not only did Gu Lingyao recover her cultivation, but she was also much stronger than before. His cultivation had already reached the great circle of the Tao King realm, the same as Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. At the same time, in addition to the increase in his cultivation, his talent and other aspects had also undergone a qualitative change. Even his temperament was much more lively than before. If Gu Lingyao could only be considered as a fairy in the mortal world before, then now she was like a fairy dancing under the moon, lively and lively. It was only at this moment that Gu Lingyao could truly be considered a peerless beauty who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. The process of accepting a disciple was not complicated. After a simple ceremony, Gu Lingyao became Randang Kozai's last disciple. At the same time, after the ceremony, Randang Kozai directly sent Gu Lingyao into the 10,000 Laws sacred array to comprehend the power of law. Gu Lingyao did not know what had happened in the outside world, nor did he know that she would become Randang Kozai's last disciple. However, this was a good thing. At least with Randang Kozai's guidance, Gu Lingyao's cultivation would be much easier in the future. Moreover, the potential of the moon god physique could be fully unleashed. As time passed, a year quickly passed. The storm of Randang Kozai accepting a disciple also gradually faded away with the passage of time. It seemed that the peace of the past had returned, but more people knew that the real calamity was unceasingly approaching. After all, there was news coming from the sacred Yin continent every day, and these news constantly confirmed everyone's guess that the demon race was really about to invade. In the short span of a year, the demonic qi emanating from the blood door was at least twice as dense as it was a year ago. The demon qi was getting denser and denser, which meant that the blood door was getting closer and closer to being opened. In this year, Randang Kozai and the others went to the sacred Yin continent more than once to check on the recent situation of the blood door, but the conclusion they came to was worrying. 3 years, at most 3 years, the blood door would be completely opened. At that time, the demon race would invade. This was the final conclusion that the old ancestors came to after careful research. The time left for the Sky River continent to prepare for war was at most 3 years. After 3 years, could the Sky River continent resist the invasion of the demon race? If they couldn't resist, then there was only one result: the destruction of the Sky River continent, and all the people living on the Sky River continent would be slaughtered by the demon race. Don't think about dragging out an ignoble existence, it didn't exist. This was not a civil war between the same race, but a war between two major races. There would be no mercy in this, and there would be no captives. Once they were defeated, the demon race would definitely carry out a bloody purge on the Sky River continent, slaughtering all the humans on the Sky River continent like pigs and dogs. Under the seemingly calm surface, the atmosphere was getting more and more tense. In this tense atmosphere, everyone in the Sky River continent was also cultivating with all their strength. In 3 years, they could improve their strength more. When the war came, they would have a higher chance of survival. In this regard, the 3 holy gates weren't stingy. Almost all the cultivation treasures of the Sky River continent were emptied. The alchemists of the entire Sky River continent began to refine pills day and night. These pills were almost freely given to many cultivators, in order to let them have more breakthroughs and improve their strength. What's more, some people had begun to use some extreme means to forcibly improve their cultivation. Even if there were side effects, even if there was no possibility of progress in the future, they didn't regret it. For these things, the 3 holy gates chose to turn a blind eye. If it was in normal times, such extreme means would naturally not be allowed, but now it was different. In the face of the demon race's invasion, whether they could block it or not was the most important thing. As for the future, that was a matter for another time. After all, if they couldn't block the demon race, how could the Sky River continent have a future? In these last 3 years, the entire Sky River continent seemed to have become a full-powered war machine. Everyone crazily squeezed out their potential, forcing themselves to constantly break through their limit. Xiao Chun and the others, like other cultivators, were cultivating crazily. 1.5 years later, Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers came out of seclusion. The 2 women didn't live up to everyone's expectations and successfully comprehended the law of ice and the law of illusion. After they comprehended the energy of the laws, their combat strengths underwent a tremendous change. Even though their cultivations were still at the perfection stage of the Tao King realm, to be blunt, they could even fight a Tao Emperor realm expert now. Because they'd grasped the energy of the laws, and the energy of the laws was sufficient to make up for the gap between 2 realms of cultivation. The 2 women came out of seclusion, but Xiao Chun still didn't make any move. Another half a year passed. At this point, Xiao Chun had been in the 10,000 Laws Sacred Array for 2 years. On this day, Xiao Chun finally came out of seclusion. After learning the news that Xiao Chun had come out of seclusion, Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and even Randang Kozai rushed over in person. Looking at the slightly tired Xiao Chun, Randang Kozai asked faintly, "How is it? I didn't let you down." Hearing Randang Kozai's words, Xiao Chun replied with a chuckle. The meaning was obvious. In these 2 years, Xiao Chun had also successfully comprehended the power of law, and more than one kind. Xiao Chun had a preliminary understanding of the law of force and the law of speed. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 872. Upon hearing Xiao Chun's answer, a smile finally appeared on Randang Kozai's face. It was good that he had succeeded. Then, Randang Kozai asked curiously, "What kind of law did you comprehend?" There were many different kinds of law powers. Randang Kozai was also curious about what kind of law Xiao Chun had comprehended. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not hide anything. He stretched out his hands and clenched them into fists. Then, 2 different kinds of law powers revolved around his hand. The law of force and the law of speed. 2 completely different kinds of law powers revolved around Xiao Chun's hand. Seeing this, Randang Kozai was stunned at first, but he soon burst into laughter. Originally, when Xiao Chun came out of seclusion half a year later than Qin Shuru and Flower Fairy, Randang Kozai guessed that Xiao Chun's talent was not as good as Qin Shuru and Flower Fairy's. After all, one of them had the Ice God constitution and the other had the Dream God constitution. They had a natural advantage in comprehending the law. But now, it seemed that he was wrong. Xiao Chun's talent was not inferior to the 2 girls. In fact, it was even better. The reason Xiao Chun came out of seclusion half a year later than the 2 girls was because Xiao Chun had comprehended 2 different kinds of law powers at the same time. It was the first time he entered the 10,000 Laws Sacred Array, and the first time he came into contact with the law powers, But he was able to comprehend two different kinds of law powers. This really shocked Randang Kozai. After laughing, Randang Kozai nodded at Xiao Chen with satisfaction. Then, he brought the three of them back to his cave residence. As for Gu Lingyao, that little girl was still in the 10,000 Laws sacred array, but it should be about time for her to come out. After bringing the three of them back to his cave residence, Randang Kozai did not waste any time. He directly gave each of them 2 jade bottles and said, "This is the breakthrough pill and cleansing pill. These are the saint breakthrough pill and saint cleansing pill. All of you should be very familiar with the saint cleansing pill, so I won't explain it further. As for the saint breakthrough pill, it can help all of you break through quickly. However, it's only effective for cultivators below the Tao Emperor realm. At the same time, the side effects are extremely great. The sacred pill of breakthrough could allow a martial artist to break through their cultivation quickly. However, after taking it, it would destroy the martial artist's foundation, making it more difficult to break through in the future. Therefore, the sacred pill of breakthrough should be taken together with the marrow cleansing pill under normal circumstances. Every time a breakthrough pill was refined, it was necessary to refine a marrow cleansing pill to neutralize the side effects of the breakthrough pill to ensure that the cultivator's foundation would not be damaged. In order to face the invasion of the demon race, it could be said that the Tianhe continent had sold everything. All the treasures of heaven and earth on the entire continent had been completely plundered in the past 2 years. Along with the crazy collection of treasures of heaven and earth, all kinds of medicinal pills had emerged one after another. The breakthrough holy pill and the marrow cleansing holy pill were the last things prepared by the 3 sacred sects for Xiao Chen and the others. They could help Xiao Chen and the others make another breakthrough. Of course, it was definitely not as terrifying as the inheritance, and it was impossible for Xiao Chen and the others to break through to the Tao Emperor stage in one go. However, it was better than nothing. The war was imminent, and it was always good to improve a little. Of course, not only Xiao Chen and the others, but Chen Yu and the other holy sons, as well as other quasi-holy sons, were also allocated pills for cultivation. Of course, the types were different. After receiving the pills, Xiao Chen knew very well that although the overall strength of the Tianhe continent seemed to have been abruptly raised by a level in just a few years, it was actually a case of pulling up seedlings to help them grow. It was like a war between 2 countries. Once the war started, the whole country would enter a state of war readiness. All production and food would be used for the war. It seemed that the combat power had increased greatly in an instant, but at the same time, it also meant that in the next few decades, hundreds or even hundreds of years, the Tianhe continent would no longer have any treasures, because all of them would be used up. It could be said that the Tianhe continent was using future resources to cope with the war in front of them, but there was no other way. If they didn't do this, how could they resist the devil race? As for what might happen next, they could only think about it in the future. After receiving the pills, Xiao Chen and the other 2 returned to the first sacred palace. The entire first sacred palace, and even the entire ancient sacred sect, all the disciples closed their doors and didn't come out. They were using the last bit of time to improve their strength. Of course, during this period of time, the ancient saint sect, heavenly saint sect, and Sun Saint sect had also distributed the last batch of elixirs. Every disciple received an elixir for cultivation. These pills were the best quality pills that were rarely seen. If it was in peacetime, they would definitely be priceless, but now they were distributed to many disciples for free. They had exhausted everything in the Sky River continent in order to deal with the devil race. With these pills in hand, many disciples naturally wouldn't waste their time. Everyone understood that once the war broke out, their strength would be the deciding factor. Therefore, everyone began to cultivate like crazy. The final preparations, while many disciples were cultivating desperately, the 3 sacred sects were also preparing various resources needed after the war broke out. The most important of which was naturally the healing pills. Therefore, all the alchemists in the Tianhe continent were summoned. After refining the pills for cultivation, they began to refine the healing pills to be used after the war broke out. In addition to the pills, weapons and talismans were also indispensable. Naturally, they were also in a hurry to make them. Everyone had their own duties, and the task of Shao Chun and the others was very simple, that was, to cultivate and improve their strength as much as possible. Therefore, after coming out of seclusion, Shao Chun and the others didn't care about anything else. They plunged into the cultivation room and began seclusion again. A few days after Shao Chun came out of seclusion, Gu Lingyao had also successfully comprehended the power of law. She had comprehended the law of light. After successfully comprehending the law of light, Gu Lingyao also received her own breakthrough pills and marrow cleansing pills from Randang Kozii. The amount was the same as Shao Chun's. After receiving the pills, Gu Lingyao also directly returned to the first sacred palace, plunged into the cultivation room, and began seclusion. In order to deal with the attack of the demon clan, the Tianhe continent was making the final preparations. Time passed day by day. Half a year later, when there was only half a year left before the 3-year period mentioned by the ancestors, Shao Chun had refined all the breakthrough pills and marrow cleansing pills. And after half a year of seclusion, with the help of the breakthrough pills, Shao Chun's cultivation also broke through to the peak of the Tao Master Realm. However, the problem that followed was that Shao Chun clearly felt that his foundation was a little unstable. After refining so many breakthrough pills, even with the help of the marrow cleansing pills, there was still no way to completely resolve the side effects of the breakthrough pills. Therefore, although Shao Chun's cultivation was breaking through at an extremely fast speed, at the same time, his foundation was inevitably affected. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 873. Shao Chun clearly felt that there was a problem with his foundation when he broke through from the beginning of the Tao Master Realm to the completion of the Tao Master Realm. Although there was still a way to fix it, Shao Chun knew very well that he could not continue to take any elixirs to improve his cultivation for a long time. Not only could he not continue to take pills, but he also had to suppress his cultivation as much as possible. He could not be like before, where he could make breakthroughs without considering the consequences. Otherwise, it was very likely that his foundation would be damaged. If that happened, Shao Chun's path of martial arts would be completely cut off. Everything had its pros and cons. Such rapid breakthroughs in one's cultivation would naturally bring about many problems, and these problems could only be solved through a bit of nurturing. I can't continue to make breakthroughs. Shao Chun sighed and shook his head with a wry smile. It could be said that over the years, since Shao Chun entered the ancient sacred sect, he began to unlimitedly squeeze out his own potential. In a short period of time, Shao Chun's cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. In just a few decades, Shao Chun had become a powerhouse at the peak of the Tao Master Realm. It seemed very cool, but no matter how strong a person's body was, there was always a limit. Now, Shao Chun clearly felt that his body's limit had been reached. If he didn't pay attention, it would be like a flood, out of control. After a rapid breakthrough, it would take a long time to nurture his cultivation. After Shao Chun finished his closed-door training, a strange scene that only appeared frequently in times of war appeared on the Tianhe continent. That was the divine tribulation. In a few months, several divine tribulations had appeared in various parts of the Tianhe continent. This divine tribulation would only appear when a half-step saint powerhouse broke through to the saint realm. With the support of such powerful resources, some of the half-step saints on the Tianhe continent finally broke through to the saint realm. The 3 holy gates weren't surprised by the frequent occurrence of holy tribulations in the outside world. After all, this time, all the resources of the Sky River continent had been consumed. It would be strange if there weren't a few Holy Realm experts appearing in the outside world. The concentrated eruption of the divine tribulations is indeed very exciting. After all, every time a divine tribulation appears, it means that another saint has appeared in the Sky River continent. However, under the surface of such a strange scene, there were unspeakable consequences. That's right, in a short period of time, several saints had indeed appeared on the Tianhe continent, and this number should continue to increase. However, after this outbreak, it would be a long time before a new saint appeared on the Tianhe continent. At that time, not to mention saints, even half-saints would probably be unable to appear. To put it bluntly, after this war, if the Sky River continent is lucky enough to win, then the entire Sky River continent will usher in a huge gap. During this period, the martial artists of the Sky River continent would find it difficult to make breakthroughs due to the shortage of cultivation resources. More and more half-saints broke through to the saint realm, and they were all invited by the three saint sects to become elders of the three saint sects to deal with the invasion of the demon race. Among them, there were naturally the rulers of the heavenly Chen continent. It had been almost 50 years since they had arrived in the Tianhe continent, and the rulers had already broken through to the semi-sage realm. And now, because of the demon race's invasion, they had profited from the disaster and obtained a large number of cultivation resources, which allowed them to break through to the sage realm at an unprecedented speed. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds, the ruler of the sky of wood, the ruler of weapons, the ruler of the sky burning, the ruler of alchemy, the ruler of divine talismans, the ruler of celestial mysteries, the ruler of pill cloud, and the other rulers of the Tiantian continent all broke through to the saint layer. Among them, the Skyburn ruler and the Pill Cloud ruler were invited by the ancient sacred sect. Xiao Chen had already become a saint. When the news that the two sovereigns were about to head to the ancient sacred sect spread, he naturally knew about it. They weren't the only ones. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had also broken through to the saint layer. He had also received invitations from the Celestial Saints sect and the Sun Saints sect. After hearing the news, Xiao Chen was looking forward to it. After all, after so many years, he could finally meet the rulers, especially the Pill Cloud ruler, who was Xiao Chen's teacher. He patiently waited for the arrival of the two. At the same time, in ancient Saint Ronding's cave, Saint Qingjue was reporting something to him respectfully. Saint Qingjue said in a deep voice, "Master, there's news from the Holy Yin continent. The Blood Gate will be completely opened in 3 months at most. It's a little earlier than we expected. Originally, according to the ancestors' predictions, the Blood Gate should be completely opened in half a year, but now it was ahead of schedule. According to the news from the Holy Yin continent, the Blood Gate would be completely opened in 3 months at most." Hearing this, Randang Kozai's face didn't have any special expression, and he still asked indifferently, "Got it. How are the new saints?" "Master, according to the statistics, there are a total of 28 new saints. Among them, 15 are the original half-saint deacons of the three saint sects, and 13 are independent cultivators or experts of other sects. However, those independent cultivators have already received our invitations and are on their way." In just over 2 years, 28 new saints had appeared on the Tianhe continent. This was absolutely impossible to achieve in any other period. Adding these people, the number of saints on the Tianhe continent had already broken through the 100 mark. It could be considered a rather terrifying force. Hearing Saint Qingju's words, Randang Kozai was silent for a moment, then said indifferently, "Speed up the progress. According to the plan, the final deployment in the Holy Yin continent must be carried out. The 3 lines of defense must be airtight. We must not let the demon race easily break through the Holy Yin continent. Since it's unavoidable, we must control the flames of war within the Holy Yin continent. We can't let it spread to the entire continent." Hearing Randang Kozai's order, Saint Qingju respectfully nodded and then retreated. The war was getting closer and closer. 3 days later, the Burning Sky ruler, no, he should be called Burning Sky Saint now, Pill Cloud Saint, and a new saint that Xiao Chen didn't know arrived at the ancient saints sect one after another. Saint Hui Yun of the ancient saints sect came out to welcome the three of them. On the same day, he announced that the three of them had become elders of the ancient saints sect, and their status was no different from the other saints. 3 more Saint Realm elders had appeared. It was not only the ancient sacred sect, but also the heavenly sacred sect and the sun sacred sect. For a time, the number of Saint Realm experts of the 3 sacred sects had skyrocketed. At the same time, the experts of the 3 sacred sects were constantly sending reinforcements from the sacred Yin continent, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 874. The number of saints had increased rapidly, and now, it had exceeded the 100 mark. However, this didn't make the old ancestors happy. Only God knew how many of these saints would survive after the war. They didn't dare to relax in the slightest. According to the original plan, the Sky River continent had completely sealed off the sacred Yin province. There were a total of 3 lines of defense in order to prevent the demon race from easily breaking through the sacred Yin sect and spreading the flames of war to the other 3 provinces. Cultivators were constantly sent to the 3 lines of defense in the sacred Yin province. Now, there were no less than 1 million Sky River continent cultivators stationed outside the sacred Yin province. Of course, there were still more cultivators rushing to the sacred Yin province, including Xiao Chen and the others. The outbreak of the war was getting closer and closer, and the atmosphere in the Sky River continent had reached an extremely oppressive level. Everyone had a feeling that a storm was coming. The 3 lines of defense had been completed. Next, the powerhouses of the Sky River continent would also rush to the sacred Yin province and have a life and death battle with the demon race of the northern demon continent. He had already met the Burning Sky ruler and the Pill Cloud ruler. After not seeing them for so many years, the two hadn't changed much. Apart from their cultivation reaching the Saint Realm, everything else was the same as before. This time, the 2 of them were also going to the sacred Yin province. After meeting up for a drink, Xiao Chen and the others began to head to the sacred Yin province under the arrangement of the saints of the ancient sacred sect. This time, Xiao Chen was riding a warship to the sacred Yin province, accompanied by hundreds of thousands of cultivators of the ancient sacred state. The warships were densely packed together, braving the wind and waves as they headed towards the sacred Yin province. Just as the Sky River continent was preparing for the war, on the other side, the demon race of the northern demon continent had also finished their preparations. The northern demon continent was a sealed continent. The entire continent was completely sealed off by an inexplicable energy. No one knew who sealed the northern demon continent, but to be able to directly seal off an entire continent, one could imagine how strong this person was. At the very least, it was impossible for a quasi-saint to do so. At the very least, it was possible for a legendary great saint to do so. They couldn't remember how long they had been trapped in the northern Devil continent. Many of the Devil clan had never left the northern Devil continent since they were born. Now, suddenly, a space passage broke through the seal and appeared in the northern Devil continent. How could the Devil clan not be ecstatic? At this time, in an unknown mountain range in the northern Devil continent, this place used to be a desolate mountain range. But now, it had become the holy land of the northern Devil continent because there was a spatial passage that was about to take shape. Just like on the heavenly river continent, in this mountain range there was also a huge blood gate. Around the blood gate, a large number of demons had already gathered. These demons had set up camp around the blood gate, setting up simple tents in order to wait for the moment when the blood gate was truly formed. The customs of the demons were completely different from the customs of the humans. The demons were very powerful, but their way of speaking was very backward compared to the humans. The demon race still maintained a tribal structure, unlike the human race who had developed countries, sects, and other forces. To put it bluntly, a tribe was similar to the humans' family forces. However, Compared to the humans' family forces, the tribes were more backward because the humans' family forces valued bloodline, while the tribes were not. The entire Devil clan on the northern Devil continent was formed by tribes, and each tribe had a leader. At this time, at least hundreds of Devil clan tribes had gathered around the Blood Gate, and these tribes were all famous tribes on the northern Devil continent. In any tribe there were saints. At this time, at the position closest to the Blood Gate there was a huge tent. This tent was almost comparable to a palace. In it, dozens of saints of the Devil clan gathered together. However, sitting on the high seats were 3 devils with fierce expressions. The devils were generally much taller and stronger than the humans. The thinnest devils were at least 2 meters tall, and the stronger ones could even reach 3 meters. At the same time, the devil's skin was greenish-black, and they had sharp teeth. At a glance, they looked extremely ferocious, completely different from the humans. At this moment, in the huge tent, the saints of the Devil clan who were extremely muscular and ferocious sat together in a circle. The 3 devils at the front were clearly their leaders. These 3 devils were also in the saint realm. Their status in the devil race was somewhat similar to the status of the great ancestors in the human race. Looking down from above, one of the Devil clan's patriarchs said slowly, "The spatial tunnel is about to open. It's finally time for us to leave this prison." In the eyes of the devils of the northern Devil continent, the northern Devil continent was a prison that had trapped their ancestors for tens of thousands of years. Now, the sudden appearance of the spatial tunnel gave them hope of leaving this prison, and at the same time, it gave them the taste of blood. As the Devil clan's patriarch finished speaking, all the saints of the Devil clan present cheered loudly. Compared to the war, the devils only showed excitement and anticipation. Facing the cheers of the Devil clan below, the Devil clan's patriarch continued after a long while. "We don't know where this spatial tunnel leads to, but it doesn't matter. No matter where it leads, it will be trampled under the feet of our Devil clan. I have decided to enter the spatial tunnel immediately and speed up the opening of the spatial tunnel, catching the other party off guard." The Devil clan's patriarch was named Shealu, and his cultivation was at the Saint Perfection realm. Hearing his words, the saints of the Devil clan below did not object and expressed their approval. At this time, the spatial tunnel had not been completely opened, but the devils were already preparing to enter the spatial tunnel and use special methods to speed up the formation of the spatial tunnel. By doing so, they could indeed catch the Skyriver continent off guard, but it was also very dangerous. After all, the spatial tunnel was very fragile before it was completely opened, and the slightest carelessness would cause it to collapse. At that time, any living creature inside would definitely die. However, in the face of such a dangerous decision, the saints of the Devil clan did not have the slightest timidity. They had been imprisoned in the northern Devil continent for too long and had long forgotten the taste of blood. Now that they finally saw the hope of leaving, they could not wait to kill their way into the Skyriver continent. Seeing that the saints agreed, Shealu nodded slightly, and then selected 10 saints of the Devil clan and a team of 10,000 elites of the Devil clan as the vanguard. They entered the spatial tunnel that had not been opened yet. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 875. Sha Yelu led 10 demon race saints and 10,000 vanguards into the spatial channel in order to open it up faster. As for the other demon race experts, they would wait for the spatial channel to be fully opened before entering it and heading to the Sky River continent. They didn't know what the demon race was doing, but at this time, the 3 major lines of defense in the Sacred Yin Prefecture had been set up, and Shao Chun and the other main forces were on their way there. It could be said that the Sacred Yin Prefecture's defense shouldn't be a problem. The only thing that was missing was that the Sacred Yin Prefecture still didn't have an ancestor overseeing it. Some saints had already reached the Sacred Yin Prefecture, but Randeng Kozai and the other ancestors were moving together with the main force and hadn't reached the Sacred Yin Prefecture yet. This wasn't because Randeng Kozai and the others were careless, but because they didn't expect the demon race to be so crazy as to dare to enter the spatial channel before it was fully opened. According to normal calculations, the Sky River Continent's side would definitely be able to make it in time, but no one expected the demon race to enter the spatial channel before it was fully opened. It was the first time Xiao Chen was riding a warship on the vast sea, and the waves were turbulent as far as the eye could see. Standing on the deck, he was accompanied by Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and the others. Looking at the sea in the distance, Xiao Chen said faintly, "It's been 7 days, right?" Xiao Chen said that it had been 7 days since they set off from the ancient sacred Yin prefecture. Hearing this, Qin Shuru nodded and replied, "Yes, it's been 7 days. 7 days of sailing, but there was still a considerable distance to the sacred Yin prefecture. At full speed, it would take at least half a month for the warship to reach the sacred Yin prefecture. Now that almost all the cultivators of the 3 major prefectures had been transferred to the sacred Yin prefecture, it was hard to imagine that the entire sacred Yin prefecture would be reduced to ruins in the near future. Xiao Chen was somewhat curious about the real demon race. It was an existence that made countless other races tremble in fear. Back then, the demonic cultivators on the Blood Demon continent worshipped the power of the demon race, which was why they cultivated according to the cultivation methods of the demon race. Xiao Chen had already witnessed the power of the devil cultivators. As the object of their reverence, how strong would the real devil cultivators be? Xiao Chen had thought about this question more than once. Several hundred battleships sailed on the boundless sea. Time passed day by day, and another 7 days had passed. At this time, the coastline of the sacred Yin province could already be vaguely seen from the deck. It was like a huge dragon winding at the end of their line of sight, stretching out in all directions. They had finally arrived. However, they didn't know how many of them would be able to leave the sacred Yin province alive after this battle. In order to deal with the demon race, this time, the 3 great sacred sects had mobilized a total of 5 million cultivators of varying cultivation levels to the sacred Yin sect. These cultivators were the backbone of the Heavenly River continent, and also the main force to resist the demon race. As they got closer and closer to the sacred Yin sect, everyone couldn't help but feel a little nervous. At the same time, at the location where the sacred Yin sect was previously, the appearance of the blood door had completely changed. Dense demon chi was constantly being emitted from it, becoming denser and denser by the day. The 3 saints in charge of monitoring the blood door also came to the blood door with a puzzled look on their faces. They stared at the blood door in puzzlement, and one of them said in a low voice, "What's going on? Isn't the transformation of the blood door a little too fast?" "Yes, it hasn't even been a night, and the demon chi has more than doubled compared to yesterday. It's indeed a little strange," said another saint. The 3 saints all felt the abnormality of the blood door. Just as they were talking, the blood door that was not completely completed suddenly emitted a dazzling blood light without any warning. The blood light was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. However, the 3 saints' expressions changed drastically, and they all exclaimed in unison, "How is that possible? How could the spatial channel be connected so quickly?" The changes in the blood door surprised the 3 saints. As the 3 of them spoke, a group of dark-skinned, tall, strong demons with sharp teeth strode out of the blood door. As these demons walked out, Sha Yelu and the 10 saints also walked out of the blood door one after another and successfully arrived on the Sky River continent. Feeling the unfamiliar continent in front of him, Sha Yelu took a deep breath, then smiled slightly. What a good place! He seemed to like the Sky River continent very much. However, as Sha Yelu said this, a saint beside him whispered, "Sir, is that a human?" Although the demons on the northern demon continent had been imprisoned for tens of thousands of years, it did not mean that they were ignorant of the outside world. After all, many ancient books had been preserved. Therefore, the demons on the northern demon continent also knew that in this world, in addition to the demon race, there were countless other races of different sizes. When they saw the three human saints not far away, the saints of the demon race quickly recognized that they were from the human race. There was an introduction to the human race in the ancient books. Hearing the demon saint's words, Shayla looked over and saw the three human saints. He smiled and said, "That's right, we're going to fight. It seems that the other party has been prepared for a long time and has sent people to monitor us again. However, we are really lucky to encounter three human saints as soon as we arrive. Who will go and take down these three human saints for me?" Sha Yelu said indifferently, as if he did not put the three human saints in his eyes at all. As his voice fell, the 10 saints of the demon race beside him were eager to give it a try, but 3 of them chose to attack without hesitation. The demon race was born to be belligerent. At this time, when they saw 3 human saints, how could they resist the raging battle intent in their bodies? Therefore, without the slightest hesitation, the 3 saints of the demon race launched an attack. Seeing that the 3 of them had taken the initiative to attack, although the other 7 saints of the demon race were cursing, they had no intention of attacking. It was acknowledged that the demon race was bloodthirsty and ferocious, but it did not mean that this race had no redeeming qualities. Among the demon race, they revered the strong, and the strong were respected. The category of the strong was not limited to the demon race. In the face of the strong of other races, the demon race was also very respectful. Therefore, most of the time, the demon race rarely bullied the weak with their numbers. They longed for battle, but they did not like those schemes and tricks. They even looked down on those races that were cunning by nature. This was a characteristic of the demon race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 876. The demon race was cruel and bloodthirsty, but they also worshipped the strong and hated schemes. To put it bluntly, the demon race was a very straightforward name. They didn't have any tricks up their sleeves and would never hide anything. If they liked to fight, they liked to fight. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. They would not be like other races, who obviously did some sneaky things behind their backs but pretended to be compassionate. This race was referring to the archenemy of the demons, the immortal race. Like the demon race, the god race was one of the most powerful races in the world. However, unlike the demon race, the god race was powerful, but they liked to pretend to be saviors of the world. This made the demon race despise them very much. Perhaps it was because of the nature of the two races that the demon race and the sacred race were destined to be archenemies since birth. They would never be able to coexist peacefully. Seeing the 3 demon saints attacking them, the 3 human saints' faces darkened. One of them immediately yelled, "Find a chance to escape and send the news back." The 3 human saints weren't fools. The sudden appearance of the demon race had made them pale with fright. At the same time, the 3 human saints clearly sensed that Sha Yelu and the others were all saints of the demon race. In particular, Sha Yelu's aura wasn't inferior to the patriarch's. It might even be stronger. Fighting them head-on would definitely lead to death. Moreover, the demon race's early appearance was completely out of everyone's expectations. Therefore, the 3 human saints' priority was to escape and send the news back to the patriarchs. They wanted to tell them that the war had broken out and that the demon race had used some method to open up a spatial tunnel in advance. Hearing that, the other 2 human saints nodded silently. Then, the 3 of them took a step forward at the same time and shot off in different directions. The 3 demon saints who had attacked first sneered when they saw the 3 human saints flee without putting up a fight. "Humph, humans, you're really lowly. Fleeing without fighting is simply infuriating. But can you escape?" With that, the 3 demon saints split up as well, each chasing after a human saint. It was not just the 3 of them. The other demon saints all looked at the human saint in disdain when they saw him flee without fighting. It was as if fleeing without fighting was an extremely wrong thing to do. Actually, this was also very normal. After all, the two races had different ways of questioning. In the eyes of humans, being flexible was the performance of a smart person. Knowing when to yield and when to stand tall was the performance of a smart person. Knowing that it was impossible but still insisting on doing it, this was idiocy. However, in the eyes of demons, this so-called flexibility was the behavior of a coward. In the world of demons, even if you knew that you would die, even if you knew that you were no match for your opponent, you still couldn't escape. Once you escaped, you would be looked down upon by everyone, including your own relatives and even your parent. There were at least hundreds of tribes on the northern Devil continent. Once you were seen fleeing without a fight, your tribe would not accept you, and your parents would not acknowledge your existence. Because in the eyes of the Devil race, they did not need cowards. On the other hand, a demon who was abandoned by his tribe and family would not be able to last long. Compared to humans, demons were obviously stubborn. They knew that it was impossible but still insisted on doing it. This was the biggest difference between the two races. The remaining 7 saints of the demon race all scolded with disdain. Hearing that, Shaolu seemed very calm, and there was a faint smile on his face. However, perhaps it was because of his appearance. This smile that seemed very gentle to the demon race was definitely ferocious and terrifying in the eyes of the human race. Shaolu said with a chuckle, "Do you know what our demon race thinks of the human race?" As one of the top few demon saints in the northern Devil continent, Shaolu naturally knew many things that ordinary demons didn't. Moreover, Shaolu had been extremely interested in the countless races in the world since he was young. He wanted to know what exactly was the difference between the different races? Who was superior and who was inferior? Could the Devil race be considered a race that truly stood at the top? It was precisely because of this curiosity that Shaolu had studied all the major races in the world. Coincidentally, the records of the human race were the most detailed in the ancient ruins of the northern Devil continent. Of course, it wasn't just the Devil race. The other races also had a deep understanding of the human race. It could be said that the human race was the race that had been studied the most in detail and thoroughly by all the major races. As for the reason, it was very simple. In the eyes of the other races, the human race was born lowly and could almost be said to have no power to resist. Think about it, if a newborn human was not protected, it was likely that any beast could tear them apart alive. However, it was such a lowly race that was destined to be slaughtered that had become one of the most powerful races in the world. Even powerful races like the Devil race, the God race, and the Beast race did not dare to start an all-out war with the human race. From this, it could be seen how fearful these races were of the human race. Not daring to look at the few demon saints behind him, Shaolu looked into the distance and muttered to himself, "I've always felt that the human race is a very respectable and magical race. They're as weak as ants when they're born, unlike the Devil race, who has unreachable power at birth." An ancestor of the Devil race once said that the human race is like a race that has been forgotten by heaven and earth. They haven't received any blessings from heaven and earth, and they're as lowly as ants. However, such a race that has been forgotten by heaven and earth has forcefully become one of the most powerful races in the world with its own efforts. It's so powerful that even the Devil race doesn't dare to look at it lightly. I've studied the cultivation methods of the human race. Compared to ours, the cultivation methods of the human race are hundreds or thousands of times more difficult. Apart from the Devil race, almost all the other races can become powerhouses in the end as long as they don't die. However, the human race is different. If they want to become stronger, they can only continuously break through their limits and seek the experience between life and death. I've always felt that the human race is like a ferocious beast trapped in a quagmire that could be devoured at any time. In order to avoid extinction, the human race has been struggling and resisting with all their might. It seems like a dying struggle, but in the process of struggling, the human race has unknowingly become so powerful that no other race dares to underestimate them. Moreover, it seems that even heaven and earth have begun to pay attention to them, making up for the only shortcoming of the human race. You should have heard that there are already a few people in the human race who have the bloodline power, right? They call it the bloodline of the sacred race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 877. Shaolu said slowly in a calm tone. At this moment, he didn't seem to be as ferocious and violent as a member of the demon race. Instead, he seemed more like a wise old man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Shaolu knew a lot about the human ancestor, but he didn't expect that the spatial passage would lead to the world of the human race. Upon hearing his words, the 7 demon saints beside him fell silent. They all knew what Shaolu meant by the bloodline of the sacred race. Compared to other races, the greatest difference between humans and other races was the power of their bloodline. Regardless of whether it was the demon race, the god race, or the beast race, they were all born with the power of their bloodline, which made their cultivation much easier. However, the human race was different. According to the ancient records, the human race didn't have the power of their bloodline a long time ago. Because of this, every step of the human race's cultivation could be said to be extremely difficult. However, after the continuous efforts of the human race's ancestors, a small portion of the human race possessed the bloodline of the sacred race. Although the power of their bloodline couldn't be compared to that of other races, it was already a very shocking thing. Once the power of the human race's bloodline evolved again and became as powerful as the demon race, the sacred race, and the beast race, the human race would be unimaginably terrifying. The human race was a lowly but extremely magical race. They were born lowly but would never admit defeat. They created miracles time and time again. This simple sentence was Shaolu's evaluation of the human race. After hearing Shaolu's words, the demon saints didn't dare to underestimate the human race. Indeed, such a lowly race had relied on their own efforts to become one of the most powerful races in the world. Facing such a race, as long as one wasn't a fool, one wouldn't underestimate them. As soon as Shaolu finished speaking, the 3 demon saints returned one after another. However, 2 of them returned empty-handed, and only one of them brought back the corpse of a human race saint. 2 of the 3 human saints managed to escape while the last one committed suicide. Perhaps because he didn't want to become a captive of the demon race, he chose to commit suicide when the demon race saint caught up to him, knowing that he was no match for the demon race. The demon saints all had strange expressions on their faces when they saw the corpse of the human saint. They would rather die than submit. All of a sudden, the demon saints who had looked down on the human saint began to have different thoughts. Shaolu said flatly as he came to the corpse of the human saint and stared at it silently. "Send the corpse back. He's a brave warrior. His corpse shouldn't be left in the wilderness. Send the body of the human race saint back." The demon saints had no objections when they heard that. Afterwards, 2 demon saints took the human saint's corpse and headed towards the human army. Their objective was very simple. They were not going to attack. They were only going to see the human saint's corpse and bring it back. The demon race revered the strong and would give enough respect to true brave warriors. Of course, ants were not included. After the 2 demon saints left, Shaolu began to order people to build walls around the blood gate. Knowing that they were about to face the human race, Shaolu's battle intent was burning in his heart. 10,000 demon race elites quickly set up tents and fortifications of various sizes, completely taking control of the blood gate. At the same time, the other 2 human saints who had successfully escaped did not hesitate at all. They immediately sent news of the demon race's early invasion to the various patriarchs. Randeng Kozai and the other patriarchs were still leading the human army towards the sacred insect. They had already reached the sea near the sacred insect and would be able to reach the shore in at most a day. However, the patriarchs were the first to receive news of the demon race's invasion. After hearing the news, The patriarch's expression turned grave, and they immediately led people to the sacred Een prefecture. The early invasion of the demon race caught everyone off guard. The patriarchs did not hide the news, and it quickly spread among the people. Hearing that the vanguard of the demon race had already arrived in the sacred Een prefecture, everyone's heart clenched. After preparing for so long, the war was finally about to begin. The spatial channel had been completely opened, and there was no doubt that more demon race would descend on the heavenly river continent. At that time, the human race and the demon race would engage in a life-and-death battle in the sacred Een prefecture. The patriarchs led all the saints to the sacred Een prefecture, while the rest of the human army went to different camps according to the previous plan. A total of 3 lines of defense were set up in the sacred Een sect to prevent the demon race from leaving the sacred Een sect. In addition to these 3 lines of defense, the human race also built 6 camps. These 6 camps were where the human army gathered and were also the vanguard against the demon race. As for the 3 lines of defense, their main purpose was to seal off and defend against the demon race's surprise attack and prevent the demon race from leaving the sacred Een prefecture. According to the plan, at least 1 million human cultivators gathered in each of the 6 camps, and these people were the strength of the human race against the demon race. The culmination camp, the soaring camp, the tsong camp, the gung camp, the quenching camp, and the ching camp. These 6 camps were located in the 6 corners of the sacred Een prefecture, forming a triangle. At this time, in the Zhongtian garrison, everyone had already received news of the demon race's arrival. It was believed that all the human cultivators who had arrived at the Zhongtian garrison were on high alert, as they did not know when the demon race would attack. Furthermore, the reinforcements of the human army had yet to arrive, and the 6 garrisons were not fully fortified, and were currently at their weakest. They carefully guarded against all the attacks of the demon race, but soon, the human cultivators in the culmination camp did not receive an attack from the demon race. Instead, they received the corpse of the human race saint. Sha Yelu ordered the human saint's body to be sent back, and the 2 demon saints really did send the human saint's body to Zhongtian's encampment. A corpse fell from the sky, and everyone in the culmination camp quickly recognized that it was a saint from the heavenly saint sect. A saint was killed? For a moment, all the human cultivators in the culmination camp were shocked. The demon race had just arrived, and they had already killed a human saint. Besides feeling shocked, all of them were extremely furious as well, because Chen Shi had killed a saint as soon as he arrived. In their opinion, it was no different than a naked declaration of war. War was unavoidable, and the actions of the demon race had completely enraged the human cultivators in the culmination camp. Of course, it was not only the culmination camp, the other 5 camps would also receive the news very soon. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 878. The news that a human saint's corpse had been thrown into the Zhongtian encampment quickly spread throughout the 6 encampment. No one had expected that a human saint would be killed in such a short period of time. As expected, all the human cultivators were agitated, and their fighting spirit was completely aroused. Saints, in normal times, were the top figures in the Sky River continent. However, such a great figure was killed in less than half a day after the arrival of the devil race. This action of the demon race had thoroughly angered the human side. At the same time, Randang Kozai and the other ancestors had also hurried to the sacred Een province with the human saints. They had also heard the news. Damn it, this old man must slaughter these beasts. The human race and the demon race will not rest until one of us is dead. Hearing this news, even the saints were unable to restrain their anger. Although the ancestors didn't say anything, it wasn't difficult to see from their expressions that they were also extremely furious. Although the fall of a saint wouldn't have much of an impact on the direction of the entire war, after all, there were hundreds of saints on the human side at this time. However, the demon race had killed a human saint as soon as they arrived. In the eyes of the human race, this was undoubtedly a declaration of war. According to the previous plan, the saints went to the 6 encampments to prepare for the attack of the demon race, while Randang Kozai and the others went directly to the Zhongtian encampment. The various patriarchs and more than 20 saints arrived. Everyone saw the saint's corpse. Looking at the corpse in front of him, Prime Saint Ice Lotus' face was gloomy. This person was an elder of his Heavenly Saint sect, and was previously in charge of monitoring the movements of the Blood sect. Send him back to the Heavenly Saint sect, and let his family bury him. Under the lead of the various patriarchs, everyone bowed to the fallen saint. Then, ancient Saint Ice Lotus spoke. The war had already broken out, and such things would definitely not be rare in the future. Now was not the time to grieve here. Since the demon race had appeared, the war had already begun. The human side was preparing intensely. Half a day later, Xiao Chun and the rest of the troops finally arrived at the sacred Yin sect. According to the division, Xiao Chun, Long Qing, Chun Ling, Qin Shuru, 100-Flower Fairy, Gu Lingyao, and hundreds of thousands of cultivators from the ancient sacred province were assigned to the Zhongtian encampment. According to the ancestors' thoughts, the 6 encampments were basically equivalent to 6 war zones, and Xiao Chun and the others were equivalent to being assigned to the Zhongtian war zone. Of course, in addition to Xiao Chun, the Zhongtian Emperor Qing and Emperor Qin Yu, the Zhongtian War. With the arrival of the human army, the atmosphere in the sacred Yin province was tense to the extreme. The 6 encampments of the human race were crowded with people, and everyone was in a hurry. All kinds of medicinal pills, talismans, and weapons needed for the war were constantly being transported to the 6 encampments. While the human side was mobilizing their troops, the demon race was not idle either. After killing the Heavenly Saint sect saint, Sha Yelu did not order an attack. Instead, with the Blood sect as the center, they began to build heavy defensive fortifications and dense tents around the Blood sect. This was the base camp of the demon race when they attacked the Heavenly River continent. With the construction of the encampment, the follow-up demon race troops also arrived at the Heavenly River continent through the space channel. At first, there were only 10,000 demon race soldiers, but after half a day, more demon race soldiers appeared on the Heavenly River continent. At this time, at least 1 million demon race soldiers had gathered in the ancestral land of the demon race. The number of demon race saints had reached nearly 100, and 4 old ancestors had arrived. Both sides were constantly concentrating their forces in the sacred Yin province, and the atmosphere was getting more and more solemn. A few days later, the human side was ready. The human cultivators in the 6 encampments, as well as various medicinal pills and talismans, were all ready. At this time, in the Zhongtian encampment, Randang Kozai and the other old ancestors were sitting together, discussing the next move. I suggest that we strike first and gain the upper hand. We can't give the enemy any more time to breathe, Prime Saint Tianyang said. The demon race had just arrived on the Heavenly River continent, and there were still many preparations that had not been completed. This time, Prime Saint Tianyang strongly urged the human race to take the initiative to attack and catch the demon race off guard. Hearing Prime Saint Tianyang's words, Randang Kozai and the other 2 old ancestors nodded in agreement. Prime Saint Tianyang's words were not wrong. They should strike first and gain the upper hand before the demon race completely gained a foothold in the sacred Yin province. They didn't expect to defeat the demon race in one fell swoop, but at least they had to tell them that the Heavenly River continent was not a duck in their mouth that they could eat whenever they wanted. Moreover, this battle could also greatly boost the morale of the human cultivators. These days, Randang Kozai and the others felt that many people were still afraid of the demon race. This was not a good thing. Being afraid before the battle was a big taboo. They had to break the fear of the demon race, so this battle was imperative. However, although they had decided to strike first and gain the upper hand, how were they going to fight? After some discussion, the four old ancestors finally decided that this battle was just a probing battle. The Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment would be in charge. The two encampments would dispatch 200,000 people and 5 saints. The purpose was not to defeat the demon race army, but to tell the other human cultivators that the demon race was not invincible and to boost their morale. After determining the goal of this battle, the four old ancestors also understood that this battle must not be fought too deeply. They could only attack the periphery of the demon race's encampment. On one hand, it was to boost the morale of the human cultivators. On the other hand, it was also to test the combat effectiveness of the demon race. After all, the Heavenly River continent had never fought with the demon race. Even the four old ancestors did not know the strength of the demon race. After finalizing the battle plan, the next day, the four old ancestors gathered the saints of the Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment and told them the whole battle plan. Hearing that they were going to take the initiative to attack the demon race's encampment, the human saints were not the slightest bit timid. Instead, they were all very excited. The final preparations had been completed, and the human cultivators of the 6 encampments could attack at any time. After preparing for so long, the saints naturally wanted to go all out and fight the demon race. They wanted to see how insufferably arrogant the demon race was. Seeing the high morale of the saints, the 4 saints were naturally very gratified. It was a good thing to have a fighting spirit, and it was an indispensable condition for victory. Immediately, the 4 old ancestors began to mobilize the troop. The Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment each sent 10 saints and 200,000 cultivators to attack the demon race's encampment. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 879. In the face of the demon race, the 4 ancestors decided to take the initiative and launch a surprise attack before the demon race gained a firm foothold in the sacred Yin province. Firstly, it would dampen the arrogance of the demon race, secondly, it would raise the morale of their side, and thirdly, it would test the depth of the demon race. According to the information obtained in the past few days, the demon race had gathered an army of 3 million soldiers around the Blood Gate. In terms of numbers, the demon race was naturally smaller than the human race. However, according to the information, the demon race was still coming out of the Blood Gate. In other words, the demon race's army had yet to fully arrive in the sacred Yin province. With so many people stationed together, the area of the demon race's encampment was naturally huge. Not only did it occupy the entire sacred Yin sect, but it even spread out for hundreds of miles in all directions. Looking from afar, the simple and crude appearance of the encampment was indeed astonishing. Compared to the Sky River continent, the demon race had come from afar, so they were naturally not as well prepared as the Sky River continent. Therefore, the plan of the 4 ancestors was quickly finalized. 10 saints were selected from the Culmination and Soaring Sky encampments. Moreover, because this was the first confrontation with the demon race, the cultivators selected were all elite. For example, in the Culmination encampment, after the 10 saints were finalized, Shao Chen, Chen Yu, Emperor Qing, Chen Ling, Long Qing, Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Gu Lingyao, and others were all selected to participate in this battle. Although they were young, their strength was not inferior to the experts of the older generation. It was not an exaggeration to say that no one below the half-saint realm was a match for Shao Chen and the others. Even in the face of a half-saint, Shao Chen and the others all had their own means to escape. Moreover, it was especially so for Chen Yu and the Qing Emperor. Even the saints were unable to determine exactly what level their strengths had risen to. However, some had guessed that Chen Yu and the Qing Emperor probably possessed the strength to kill half-saints. To put it simply, only saints could kill Shao Chen and the others now. Even if a half-saint could not defeat them, Shao Chen and the others could definitely escape unscathed. Therefore, even though Shao Chen and the others were from the younger generation, their strength could already be considered as the backbone of the human clan. With such strength, there was no way he could escape from this operation. The 4 old ancestors had already said that this was the first battle, and they could only win. Even if it was a small victory, they absolutely could not lose. Because once they lost, the human race's fear of the demon race would be infinitely magnified. At that time, once the demon race launched an attack, the human race was likely to collapse without a fight. Fully aware of the importance of this battle, the 20 saints in charge of this battle did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Almost all the people they had deployed were the most elite warriors in the 2 camps. They wanted to raise the morale of the human race and let all the human race warriors know that the demon race was not invincible. They personally met with the Tianfeng Saint. The Tianfeng Saint would also participate in this battle as one of the 10 saints in the Zhongtian camp. In the Tianfeng Saint's residence, Shao Qin, Qin Yu, and the Qing Emperor sat together in a circle. The Tianfeng Saint looked at the 3 of them. The Tianfeng Saint explained the entire plan to them. At the end, he said with a chuckle, "This is the first battle between us and the demon race. Its significance is self-evident. The 3 of you must not let your guard down." Having completely understood the significance of this battle, Shao Qin and the others nodded slightly. Then, the Tianfeng Saint said with a smile, "Okay, go and prepare. We will leave tonight." The purpose of this battle was to catch the demon race by surprise, so speed was the key. After leaving the Tianfeng Saint's residence, Shao Qin returned to his residence. He called Qin Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru. Everyone made some preparations and then secretly left the Zhongtian camp. In order not to be discovered by the demon clan in advance, the 400,000 practitioners from the 2 garrisons were divided into 20 small troops, and each small troop was led by a saint. This battle was to break up the whole into parts. Under the command of the saints, the 20 small troops would fight on their own. They did not need to act as one, nor did they need to attack together. They would find an opportunity to attack and retreat when they had an advantage. The troop that Shao Qin and the others were in was led by the Tianfeng Saint. This was actually arranged by the Tianfeng Saint. The entire troop had a total of 20,000 people. Without waiting for the other troops, the Tianfeng Saint directly led everyone out of the Zhongtian camp and rushed in the direction of the demon race's camp. Everyone would fight on their own. As a result, the routes that the saints chose were naturally different, and the places that they ultimately chose to attack were also different. The route that the Tianfeng Saint chose was to cross the thriving Thousand Mountain Range and then arrive at the southeast edge of the demon race's camp before launching an attack. Due to the continuous expansion of the demon race's camp, the Saint Yin sect had become the command center of the demon race. The saints and ancestors of the demon race were now living in the Saint Yin sect. With the Saint Yin sect as the center, the encampments that spread out in all directions had already stretched for hundreds of miles. Therefore, it was not difficult to launch a sneak attack on the periphery. Of course, the demon race would definitely have saints guarding the periphery of the encampment. Traveling day and night, everyone moved very quickly and carefully, not daring to leave any traces behind. 3 days later, the troop that Shao Qin and the others were in finally passed through the thriving Thousand Mountain Range. They could already see the demon race's encampment from afar. Shao Qin and the others had already arrived at the encampment of the demon race, and the other troops had also arrived at their predetermined attack positions. They did not choose to attack during the day. Instead, they waited until night. The sky gradually darkened, and starlight shone on the ground. At this time, the Tianfeng Saint and the 20,000 human race cultivators who were hiding in the dark finally began to move. The Tianfeng Saint changed his elegant appearance from before, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Everyone, the demon race has invaded, and this battle is inevitable. Today is our first battle with the demon race. In this battle, only victory is allowed. Kill." Following the Tianfeng Saint's furious roar, The 20,000 human race cultivators drew their weapons and raised the sharp blades in their hands as they shouted, "Kill!" Accompanied by the battle cries, the human race martialists seemed to have descended from the sky and charged out of the darkness. The demon race, who had not been prepared at all, walked out of their tents in confusion after hearing the earth-shattering battle cries. However, what they saw was tens of thousands of human race martialists, who were brimming with killing intent, charging into their encampment. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 880. Under the cover of the night, an elite army of 20,000 human race experts pierced into the encampment of the demon race like a sharp GNE. The outermost devil race cultivators did not even have the chance to react before they were killed by the human race cultivators. The devil race cultivators at the back rushed out of their tents when they heard the battle cries. However, they saw the human race cultivators attacking them. The demon race was indeed a natural warmonger. After a brief moment of shock, many demon race cultivators quickly recovered from their shock and joined the battle with the human race cultivators. This was a camp on the outskirts of the demon race's ancestral land. There were about 10,000 demon race cultivators here, and it could be considered as the outpost of the demon race's encampment. It was also because of this that the Tianfeng Saint set the target of the attack here. The mission of this battle was to completely destroy this encampment of the demon race. The demon race, who had recovered from their shock, quickly regrouped and engaged in a fierce battle with the human race. At this time, the two sides were like two huge savage beasts, clashing head-on in the most blunt way in the darkness. The battle broke out and blood splattered everywhere. Xiao Chun and the others rushed to the front and were the first to come into contact with the demon race cultivators. It was the first time they had seen a demon race cultivator. The tall and strong figure, greenish-black skin, and ferocious face were indeed daunting. But even so what? Their fighting spirit had been ignited, and they had no other choice but to fight. Xiao Chun led the human race cultivators into the demon race's encampment. Soon, they encountered the demon race cultivators. They slashed out with the black dragon sword in their hands, and their eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. In the face of Xiao Chen's attack, the demon race cultivator in front of them roared and took the initiative to attack. The figures of the human race and the demon race cultivators were everywhere. Compared to the demon race cultivators, who were about 3 meters tall, the human race cultivators were indeed a little thin. But so what? Facing the demon race cultivators, the human race cultivators did not have the slightest hesitation. They fought fiercely with the demon race cultivators with the sharp blades in their hands. Xiao Chun didn't have the leisure to pay attention to other people's battles. This was the first time that he had encountered a demon. At this time, Xiao Chun discovered that this demon's body was indeed tough. It was almost comparable to a human body refining martial artists. Moreover, this was not an exception. The bodies of all demons were much stronger than that of humans. Perhaps this was an innate advantage of the demons. Relying on this kind of body, the devil race's fighting style was direct and crude. They didn't need to practice martial skills like the human race to increase their attack power. The devil race didn't need this. They could rely on their terrifying body to display the same might as martial skills. The toughness of the physical body brought 3 benefits to the demon race. The first was their great strength, the second was their strong defense, and the third was their vigorous vitality. There was no need to explain more about strength and defense. The meaning of vigorous vitality was also very simple. For example, if a human race and a devil race suffered the same serious injury, the human race might die, but the devil race wouldn't. Even if you gave him enough time, the devil race could slowly recover by themselves. In addition to the physical body, the cultivation methods of the devil race and the human race were completely different. Although they both refined the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, after the human race refined the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, they condensed it in their dantian and then transformed it into spiritual power. However, the devil race was different. The devil race was born with a devil heart. When the spiritual chi of heaven and earth entered the devil race's body, it would be instantly transformed into devil chi. This was also the source of the devil race's power. Spiritual power and devil chi were the biggest differences between the human race and the devil race. However, they both came from the spiritual chi drifting between heaven and earth. Every devil race member was surrounded by a dense black chi, which looked extremely terrifying. However, at this time, Shao Chun had completely ignored this. One by one, the devil race members died under Shao Chun's sword. Perhaps it was because this was only the outermost camp, so the cultivation of the devil race members here was not too high. At least, among the devil race members that Shao Chun had encountered along the way, the one with the highest cultivation was only in the Tao Gate realm. With such a huge gap in cultivation, no matter how strong the devil race's physical body was, they could not pose any threat to Shao Chun. The ink dragon sword in his hand was completely stained with blood. Shao Chun's terrifying fighting spirit naturally attracted the attention of many devil race members. Knowing that this was a powerhouse of the human race, 5 devil race members attacked Shao Chun at the same time, completely surrounding him. At such a young age, human, you should be the so-called genius of the human race, right? One of the devil race members who surrounded Shao Chun said with a ferocious expression. Hearing this, Shao Chun shook the ink dragon sword lightly, and the blood on the sword was immediately flung away. Then, Shao Chun said indifferently, "Genius? Sorry, I'm not." Seeing that Shao Chun was not the genius that the human race was talking about, the 5 devil race members were slightly stunned. However, Shao Chun obviously did not give them a chance. With a move of his feet, he directly executed the stampede of the tiger and immediately took the initiative to attack. Among the 5 devil race members, the highest cultivation was only in the Tao Gate realm, and the lowest was only in the Tao Confirmation realm. To Shao Chun, they were no threat at all. Therefore, even though he was surrounded by the 5 devil race members, Shao Chun was not nervous at all. With a slash of his sword, he attacked one of the devil race members like a sudden clap of thunder. This was the Thunderclap 9 swords. Back then, Shao Chun had exchanged for a heaven-grade upper martial skill in the ancient Saint sect. After so many years, Shao Chun had finally cultivated it to the transformative stage. As a heaven-grade upper martial skill, there was no need to doubt the power of the Thunderclap 9 swords. With a slash of the sword, it was like a bolt of lightning descending, instantly incinerating the devil race member into nothingness. As one of the most powerful heaven-grade upper martial skills in the ancient Saint sect, the Thunderclap 9 swords was very powerful. At the same time, it was also very difficult to cultivate. This was also the reason why Shao Chun had taken so many years to successfully cultivate the Thunderclap 9 sword. It was not a tough battle, and the 5 devil race members were quickly killed by Shao Chun. When the last devil race member had its legs chopped off by Shao Chun and collapsed in front of Shao Chun said indifferently, "I'm not the so-called genius that you all are talking about, because a genius is nothing in my eyes." As soon as he finished speaking, a sword light flashed, and the devil race member's head flew into the air. Shao Chun was indeed not a genius, because a genius was nothing in Shao Chun's eyes. The difference was too great. After killing the 5 devil race members, the number of devil race members that had died under Shao Chun's sword had reached dozens. Looking up at the sky, Tianfeng Saint was fighting fiercely with 3 half-saints from the devil race. They should be the leaders of this camp. However, even though it was 3 against 1, the 3 half-saints from the devil race were still no match for Tianfeng Saint. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 881. The 3 half-saints of the devil clan besieged Tianfeng Saint at the same time. However, judging from the current situation, Tianfeng Saint still had the absolute advantage. It should not be a problem for him to kill the 3 half-saints of the devil clan. It seemed that there was only one step between a half-saint and a saint, but the gap was absolutely exaggerated. Therefore, it was almost impossible for the 3 half-saints of the Devil Clan to defeat Tianfeng's saint. However, these Devil Clan members were really good. None of them chose to escape when they were attacked by surprise. Every one of them chose to fight to the death, which surprised Xiao Chen. The battle was still going on. Not only Xiao Chen's camp, but the rest of the Devil Clan's encampment was also attacked by the Human Clan. There were a total of 20 encampments. On this night, 20 encampments outside the encampment of the Devil Clan were attacked by the Human Clan. The attack was still going on, but the resistance of the Devil Clan was getting weaker and weaker. There were only 10,000 Devil Clan members in this encampment, and there were no experts guarding it. The strongest ones were only the 3 half-saints of the Devil Clan. However, Tianfeng's saint had already killed one of them, and there were only 2 half-saints of the Devil Clan left. Even one of the 3 half-saints had been killed. Therefore, the Devil Clan below was even less likely to be a match for Xiao Chen's group. It should be known that in order to ensure that nothing would go wrong, the 20 troops sent by the Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment were all experts of the Human Clan. They were the real elites. In terms of numbers, strength, and cultivation, they were far superior to the Devil Clan. Therefore, there was naturally no problem in attacking this encampment. The attack was launched in the middle of the night. Now, the sky was gradually brightening, and dawn was about to arrive. At this time, the battle was nearing its end. There were only a few sporadic battles that had not ended. At this time, Tianfeng's saint, who had already killed the 3 half-saints of the Devil Clan, looked down at the people who were still fighting fiercely below and shouted in a deep voice, "Quick, the Devil Clan's reinforcements are coming. Let's retreat after we finish them." Although this was a surprise attack launched by the Human Clan, after this fierce battle, the Devil Clan's reinforcements should be arriving soon. They had to retreat before the reinforcements arrived. Although this was a great victory, the Tianfeng saint was still very clear-headed and didn't let such a victory get to his head. It seemed that humans had destroyed 20 demon camps in just one night. However, it should not be forgotten that these 20 camps were almost dispensable for demons. Additionally, the demons that were killed in the encampment were not powerhouses. Their cultivations were very low. Therefore, this victory was more significant than boosting the morale of humans. Meanwhile, it let humans know the power of demons. Because he had personally experienced all of this, the Heavenly Wind Saint did not feel too happy about the victory. He urged everyone to end the battle as soon as possible and then quickly retreat. Hearing the Tianfeng saint's words, the people below didn't dare to relax. They quickly ended the battle and left the place. In this battle, Xiao Chen's team had killed 10,000 demons, while they had only lost 12. Such a victory could definitely be considered a great victory. They retreated all the way back to the prosperous mountain range. Just as the Tianfeng saint, Xiao Chen, and the others had retreated, the Devil Clan's reinforcements arrived as expected. They were led by a Devil Saint. There weren't many of them, only a little over 1,000. However, they were extremely powerful because the weakest among them was at the Dao Emperor realm. It had happened so suddenly, and more than one camp had been attacked. Therefore, the Devil Clan couldn't gather an army to rescue them in a short period of time. They could only transfer their powerhouses to the encampment that had been attacked. Unfortunately, although the Devil Clan had reacted immediately, they were still a step too late. Looking at the completely destroyed encampment below and the scattered corpses of the demons, the Devil Clan's saint who was the leader had a gloomy expression. After a while, a half-saint from the Devil Clan came to the Devil Clan's saint and reported respectfully, 10,000 demons. All of them were killed without exception. The 10,000 demons in the encampment were all killed. Not a single one of them was left alive. The humans had long disappeared. When he heard the half-saint's report, the half-saint of the devil race was so angry that he started laughing. He revealed an extremely terrifying smile. Interesting. Looks like Lord Shayla was right. The humans really can't be underestimated. We haven't even made a move, but they've made a move first. The Devil Clan Saint sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, he instructed the half-saint beside him. I'll leave this place to you. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for the half-saint to reply. He took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. In one night, 20 encampments were attacked by the humans. Moreover, without exception, all the demons in these 20 encampments were killed. Not a single one of them was left alive. In the face of the attack launched by the humans, Shaelu and the other 3 Devil Clan patriarchs gathered in the Devil Clan's encampment that was originally in the Saint Ian sect. However, there wasn't the slightest trace of seriousness or nervousness on their faces. Perhaps it was just as the Tianfeng Saint had thought. This attack actually had no effect on the Devil Clan at all. At most, it would be a blow to their morale. Therefore, although more than 200,000 demons had died, the foundation of the Devil Clan wasn't damaged at all. Sitting together, one of the Devil Clan patriarchs looked at Shaelu and chuckled softly. Shaelu, you're right. The humans really didn't give up without a fight. In fact, as early as a few days ago, Shaelu had said that the humans definitely wouldn't give up without a fight, nor would they cower because of the invasion of the Devil Clan. In the face of the Devil Clan, the humans would only rise up and resist. His words were successful. Hearing the words of the demon race patriarch, Shaelu smiled slightly. A race that is destined to fight against the heavens from the moment they were born naturally wouldn't give up without a fight. It's normal. Shaelu felt that it was normal for the human race to attack him. Upon hearing this, the other 3 demon race patriarchs smiled and nodded. Finally, one of the demon race patriarchs stopped smiling and said calmly, "In the words of humans, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Now that humans have given us such a great gift, it would be unreasonable if we don't reciprocate. Shaelu, you know humans best. I'm afraid that you'll have to lead the first battle. Show humans the power of demons." Shaelu said with a smile. That's right. The humans had just launched a surprise attack on the Devil Clan, and the Devil Clan quickly decided to counterattack. The Devil Clan Patriarch who was in charge of this counterattack was naturally the Devil Clan Patriarch, Shaelu, who knew the humans the best. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 882. With the surprise attack of the human race, the war between the 2 races had truly begun. After the 4 demon ancestors discussed it, Shaelu was also responsible for the counterattack against the human race. Both races had millions of people. A battle of this scale would naturally not be decided in a short period of time. No matter who it was impossible to defeat the other party in a single bite. This was something that both the Devil race and the human race were very clear about. After the meeting ended, the 4 demon patriarchs left one after another. Shaelu also returned to his residence. However, as soon as he stepped into the courtyard, 4 young demon patriarchs strode toward him. After bowing respectfully to Shaelu, the 4 young demons said with a smile on their faces, "Ancestor, how is it? Are you going to attack the human race?" Based on their appearances, it seemed like they couldn't wait to attack the human race since a long time ago. Moreover, it wasn't difficult to discern from their auras that 3 of them were at the Tao Emperor realm, while the weakest was at the perfection stage of the Tao King realm. They really weren't weak. Moreover, in addition to their cultivation, the aura of the 4 people was very dense. Obviously, they were not ordinary Tao Kings or Tao Emperors. In fact, this was indeed the case. These 4 young demons were known as Demon Sons in the Northern Demon Continent. In terms of status, they were equivalent to the Holy Sons of the Tianhe continent. Their status was noble, and their combat power was very strong. This time, these demon sons and daughters of the demon race naturally followed them to attack the Tianhe continent. Although the appearance of the demon race and the human race were completely different, and their aesthetics were also completely opposite, facing these 4 demon sons, even from the perspective of the human race, they were indeed handsome. Of course, this was in terms of the appearance of the demon race. Compared with the human race, these 4 demon sons were still considered ferocious. Looking at the 4 demon sons, Sha Yelu smiled and said, Sha Mo Xiong, Sha Mo Ling, Sha Mo Qing, Sha Mo He, why are you 4 boys here? Sha Yelu was very doting towards these 4 demon sons. Couldn't be helped, these 4 little guys were the descendants of Sha Yelu, and they were the most outstanding descendant. In the demon race, blood relations were basically used as a medium. There was no master-disciple relationship like the human race. Sha Mo Xiong and these 4 demon sons were the descendants of Sha Yelu. Hearing his ancestors' words, Sha Mo Xiong, who was the oldest, said respectfully, Ancestor, we heard that the human race launched an attack last night and defeated 20 camps of our demon race in one fell swoop, so we specially asked the ancestor to let us 4 brothers. Initially, Shamisen wanted to tell Shaelu bluntly that they wanted to lead a team to attack the human race. However, before he could finish, Shaelu waved his hand and stopped him. We still have to come up with a plan at this time. Don't worry, when it's time for you to act, you will naturally step aside. Shaelu was already in charge of the counterattack against the human race. However, he didn't act rashly. After all, the human race was well prepared. The 3 lines of defense and the 6 garrisons weren't easy to break through. If he attacked rashly, he might end up worse off. Besides, since the human race dared to launch a surprise attack, they would definitely be on guard against the revenge of the demon race. Therefore, it wasn't advisable to touch them rashly. Sha Yelu was scheming and astute, but Sha Mo Xiong and the other 3 juniors weren't so scheming. The demon race was pure to begin with. After hearing Sha Yelu's words, the youngest of the 4 brothers, Sha Mo He, grabbed Sha Yelu's arm and said with a fawning expression, Ancestor, the human race has already taken the lead. Are we just going to let it go? Let us go. We definitely won't embarrass the ancestor. We will definitely kill all the human race. Amongst the 4 brothers, Sha Mo was the youngest, and his cultivation was the lowest as well. He was only at the perfection stage of the Tao King realm. However, amongst the 4 brothers, Sha Mo was the one that Sha Yelu doted on the most, and only he dared to speak to Sha Yelu in such a manner. The reason was very simple. Sha Mo He was more talented than his 3 elder brothers. Even Sha Yelu had said that if Sha Mo He could continue to grow, his future achievements would definitely not be inferior to him, the patriarch. Sha Yelu wasn't angry when Sha Mo pulled him. Instead, he patted Sha Mo's head affectionately and said with a smile, Okay. The ancestor promises you that when the time comes, I will definitely give you a chance to perform and let you take the lead. Is that okay? Really? Thank you, ancestor. Sha Mo He was overjoyed. Sha Mo He was indeed very proud of his 4 outstanding juniors. They had never embarrassed him before. Therefore, Sha Mo He intended to let the 4 of them take the lead in this counterattack against the human race. His purpose was also to train the 4 of them. Accompanied by the 4 brothers, Sha Mo He walked into the courtyard. This courtyard was originally the residence of a disciple of the sacred Yin sect, but it had now become Sha Mo He's residence. When the 3 sacred sects joined forces to attack the sacred Yin sect, they had indeed destroyed all the cave residences of the sacred Yin sect. However, many courtyards were left behind. After all, there was nothing special about these courtyards, and the 3 sacred sects were too lazy to destroy them. They were left behind and now became the residences of the various saints, ancestors, and demon sons and daughters of the demon race. Of course, ordinary demons could only live in simple tents. Sha Mo He didn't know the reaction of the demon race, but just as he guessed, after activating their aura, Randang Kozai and the others had indeed begun to guard against the counterattack of the demon race. The 6 garrisons were all in a state of combat readiness. They were strictly guarding against the counterattack of the demon race, but the strange thing was that after 3 days, the demon race didn't react at all. Even after the Tianfeng Saint and the other 20 teams returned safely to the Zhongtian and Soaring Sky garrisons, the demon race didn't do anything. It was a very strange move, but Randang Kozai and the others didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. While strengthening the defenses of the 6 garrisons, Randang Kozai and the others also gathered the Tianfeng Saint and the other saints who had participated in this battle. Although this surprise attack on the demon race was a great victory and also greatly boosted the morale of the human race, Randang Kozai and the others were most concerned about the demon race. Previously, their understanding of the demon race was basically based on the records of various ancient books, and they hadn't really come into contact with them. Now, after the first battle, Randang Kozai and the others also wanted to understand the situation of the demon race from the Tianfeng Saint and the others. Xiao Chen, Long Qing, Chen Ling, and Qin Shi returned to their residence, and the Tianfeng Saint and the others did indeed come to the main hall of the Zhongtian garrisons. Here, Randang Kozai was already waiting, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 883. Randang Kozai, Prime Saint Binglian, Prime Saint Mingjie, and Prime Saint Tianyang sat on the main seat. The Tianfeng Saint and the other saints who had participated in the battle bowed to them respectfully. Randang Kozai didn't mind. He waved his hand and went straight to the point. This battle was good. It was a complete victory. I believe that after this battle, you should have a deeper understanding of the demon race, right? Let's hear it. This battle was only a test in the hearts of the 4 great ancestors. Now, they wanted to hear whether the Tianfeng Saint and the others had any new opinions about the demon race after fighting head-on with them. After everyone was seated, one of the saints took the lead to speak. This time, when we attacked the outer camp of the demon race, we didn't encounter any saint of the demon race. However, we did fight with a half-saint of the demon race. If you ask my opinion, the demon race shouldn't be underestimated. They are very strong, the saint said very seriously. His evaluation of the demon race was very simple. It was a very powerful race and shouldn't be underestimated. As this saint spoke, the other saints present all chimed in one after another, and all of them expressed their views on the demon race. However, all of them were pretty much the same. Finally, the Tianfeng Saint was the last to speak. He looked at Randang Kozai and said solemnly, "Master, what you said earlier is correct. There is no exaggeration at all. In terms of disciples, at the same cultivation level, the human race is no match for the demon race. Unless you are a core disciple of the 3 sacred sects, the human race is indeed weaker than the demon race at the same cultivation level. However, after last night's battle, this disciple has also realized that the strength of the devil race is innate. Our human race can gradually make up for this gap through cultivation. However, if we want to truly fight with the same level, I'm afraid that only the sage realm can truly make up for this innate gap, let alone those geniuses of our race." The Tianfeng Saint's words were more detailed. The demon race was innately stronger than the human race, and it was only possible to make up for this gap by reaching the saint realm. Of course, the Tianfeng Saint was talking about ordinary warriors on both sides. Saints like Xiao Chen and the demon race were obviously not included in this list. It was difficult for the human race to contend with the demon race at the same cultivation level. After hearing the Tianfeng Saint's words, Randang Kozai and the other 3 fell silent. After a while, Randang Kozai spoke. "How do you all think we should solve this problem?" The Tianfeng Saint and the others looked at each other. Finally, the Tianfeng Saint stood and replied. "There's no other way, we have no choice but to fill the gap. We can't defeat the demon race at the same cultivation level 1-to-1. We can't defeat the demon race at the same cultivation realm. Inzazas. The human race was innately weaker than the demon race. This was something that couldn't be changed. Therefore, if they wanted to fight the demon race, they could only make use of their advantage in numbers. Otherwise, if both sides had the same number of people, the human race's chances of winning would be less than 30%. This was the answer given by the Tianfeng saint and the other saints who participated in this battle. The more they knew about the demon race, the more pessimistic the situation became. However, there was still good news apart from this piece of bad news. The gap would be completely closed after reaching the saint realm. In other words, a human saint wouldn't be weaker than a demon saint at the same cultivation level. This was the most important point. If a human saint wasn't a match for a demon saint at the saint realm, then it would really be over. If that was the case, it would be useless even if they used numbers. If even a saint couldn't withstand the demon race, what could the people below do? This was still a piece of good news. After hearing the words of the saints, Randang Kozai and the other three sighed secretly. It seemed that the demon race was indeed not easy to deal with. The saints were discussing the next layout in the main hall, while Xiao Qin and the others were chatting in the courtyard. After such a great improvement, everyone had a rare chance to relax. However, although they were chatting, almost all of the topics were related to the demon race. It wasn't just the Tianfeng saint who sensed the strength of the demon race. Xiao Qin and the others also felt the same. Sitting together, Chen Ling said faintly, "It seems that it won't be easy to defeat the demon race." Yes, in terms of individual strength, the demon race is indeed much stronger than the human race. In fact, in terms of understanding of the demon race, no one in the entire Tianhe continent could compare to Chen Ling. This was because it wasn't his first time coming into contact with the demon race. Therefore, Chen Ling was very clear about the strength of the demon race. At the same time, he also understood that if the human race wanted to defeat the demon race, they would have to pay a terrible price. In Chen Ling's hometown, someone once said that if the human race wanted to defeat the demon race, they would have to pay at least twice the price. This was already the lowest price. In other words, in order to defeat 1,000,000 demon race members, the human race would have to have at least 2,000,000 people. Moreover, their cultivation had to be equal to the demon race's. Otherwise, it would be impossible to succeed. 2 human race members were needed to defeat 1 demon race member. This was already the most ideal result. Don't think that this was an exaggeration. Often, this requirement was not met. Many times, 3 human race members were needed to defeat 1 demon race member. Hearing Chen Ling's words, Xiao Qin could not help but laugh bitterly. He knew that Chen Ling's words were true. Although Xiao Qin faced these demons this time, it was as if he was cutting melons and vegetables. However, the cultivation of these demons was low to begin with. Naturally, they were not a match for Xiao Qin. However, after a real battle with these demon race members, Xiao Qin finally realized how terrifying the demon race was. Their physical body was one aspect, but what was more terrifying was the demon race's belligerence. If it was the human race that suffered such a sneak attack, they would have been defeated directly without any preparation or organization. However, the demon race did it. Instead of being defeated, they even put up a resistance in the shortest time possible. Although they were still defeated in the end, it showed the demon race's belligerence and bravery. The demon race was a race that would not retreat. It was as if they did not know what fear was. Such a race was often the most terrifying. In Xiao Qin's opinion, the demon race's innate strength was secondary. What was truly terrifying was the demon race's character. The belligerence and bravery that came with their bones was the most troublesome thing for the human race. Thinking about it, this time, Xiao Qin's team attacked the demon race's camp and wiped out all the demon race members in the camp. What did this mean? Did it mean that the human race was powerful? That was not the case. It meant that none of the demon race members chose to escape. Every demon race member chose to fight to the last moment. Facing a race that did not know how to escape, it was indeed very difficult to defeat them. This was what Xiao Qin was most worried about. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 884. After fighting with the demon race, Shao Chun finally experienced the demon race's belligerence. It was as if they were a race born to fight. In terms of culture and development, the demon race was far inferior to the human race. The demon race's current level of culture was like that of the human race tens of thousands of years ago. There were no cities in the demon race, only villages and villages. It was these villages and villages that formed the entire social system of the demon race. On the other hand, the human race not only had sects and empires, but they also had numerous large cities and flourished trade and economic activities. This was the development of the two races. As for other things, the demon race could not compare to the human race. For example, the restaurants and inns in the human race's cities were probably unheard of by the demon race. The demon race's level of civilization was much lower than the human race's, but their combat power was far superior to the human race's. Perhaps this was the fundamental difference between the two races. The demon race was not greedy for pleasure, or it should be said that fighting was the greatest enjoyment for them. After chatting casually, Shao Chun finally asked curiously, "Big brother, where is your hometown?" All along, both Shao Chun and Long Qing were very curious about where Chun Ling's hometown was. This was because Shao Chun found out that Chun Ling was not only familiar with the demon race, but also seemed to be very familiar with the god race and other races. This made Shao Chun very curious. Hearing Shao Chun's words, Chun Ling smiled and said, "There's no rush. You'll know in the future. Moreover, my hometown is also second sister's hometown." He did not answer Shao Chun's question, but Chun Ling still said that he and Long Qing's hometown were actually from the same place. Hearing this, Shao Chun was even more confused. However, seeing Chun Ling like this, even if he continued to ask, he would not say anything. No one knew what this fellow was thinking. All this time, Chun Ling had kept his mouth shut about everything about his hometown. He only told Shao Chun. When the time came, he would naturally know. Regarding this, Shao Chun was displeased, but there was nothing he could do. Seeing Shao Chun's displeased pout, Chun Ling smiled and said, "All right, let's think about how to deal with the demon race. This time, we will give them a surprise attack. With the demon race's character, I believe they will take action very soon." "Really? But it's already been 3 days, and there's still no movement from the devil race." Long Qing was puzzled when he heard that. "Don't worry, they'll definitely come, and it won't be small." Hearing Long Qing's words, Chun Ling smiled confidently, as if he had already seen through everything. Of course, Chun Ling naturally could not see through what the demon race was thinking. The main reason why he was so sure was because he was familiar with the demon race. Therefore, he was sure that the demon race would not remain indifferent. In the first attack, the human race won a great victory. This victory greatly boosted the confidence of many human race warriors. At the same time, on the other side, the demon race did not move at all for several days. This was not because they were afraid, but because they were preparing and planning a great battle. At this moment, in Sha Yelu's residence, a total of 50 demon race saints gathered together. Everyone sat in a row in the hall, and Sha Yelu naturally sat in the main seat. This time, the other 3 demon race patriarchs had handed the decision to Sha Yelu. At this moment, after several days of preparation and investigation, Sha Yelu was finally ready to take action. Sweeping his gaze across the 50 demon race saints below, Sha Yelu asked indifferently, "How is it? Is everything in place?" "Sir, don't worry. The 6 armies have already arrived at the designated positions. As long as you give the order, we'll be able to attack the 6 encampments of the human race in an instant." After hearing the words of this demon race saint, it was obvious that Sha Yelu's counterattack this time was not for fun, and that was indeed the case. The human race had ambushed 20 encampments of the demon race. This time, Sha Yelu only wanted to take down one of the encampments of the human race. It had to be said that Sha Yelu's appetite was indeed huge. The 20 encampments of the demon race that the human race had ambushed were nothing at all. They were only the peripheral encampments of the demon race. But now, Sha Yelu actually wanted to take over one of the human race's encampments. It was self-evident what this meant. Sha Yelu wanted to use this battle to deal a heavy blow to the human race. One had to know that the 6 encampments of the human race were not only heavily guarded, but there were also many small encampments set up outside each encampment. These encampments protected the encampments in the middle so that when the demon race attacked, they would be able to discover it immediately and stall for time, so that the main forces of the human race in the encampments would have time to prepare. This arrangement was very normal, and so was the demon race. Therefore, the human race only destroyed some of the encampments in the periphery and did not dare to go deep. Now, Sha Yelu's target was not those encampments, but one of the 6 encampments. It had to be said that he was really greedy to want to take down one of the encampments in one go. Hearing that everything was ready, Sha Yelu looked at the map in front of him. It was a map of the Holy Een Prefecture, and the locations of the 6 encampments of the human race were clearly marked on the map. After confirming the locations of the 6 encampments of the human race, Sha Yelu fixed his gaze on the Zhongtian encampment and said coldly, "This time, we are mobilizing 2 million people, of which 1 million are stationed in the Zhongtian encampment, and they are all warriors of the demon race. Remember, the other 5 encampments are just feints to distract the human race. The real target is the Zhongtian encampment, and we must take it down, understand?" "Sir, don't worry, we will not disappoint you." Hearing that, the 50 demon saints present all nodded respectfully. This time, they were attacking the 6 encampments of the human race at the same time, but apart from the Zhongtian encampment, the rest were just feints to confuse the human race. After distracting the human race, they would attack and take down the Zhongtian encampment. Even if they could not take down the Zhongtian encampment, according to Sha Yelu's plan, they would at least destroy half of the human race's forces in the Zhongtian encampment. The plan had been set, and the demon race troops had already arrived at the designated location. Afterward, Sha Yelu waved his hand and said, "Go, we will take action tomorrow morning." After confirming the time of action and hearing Sha Yelu's words, the demon saints retreated respectfully. At the same time, Sha Yelu's face turned solemn. He knew that his plan was very bold, but at the same time, it was also very greedy. Wanting to swallow up the human race's Zhongtian station in one fell swoop was definitely not a simple matter, and his actions had undoubtedly set off a fierce struggle between the demon race and the human race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 885. If the previous surprise attack of the human race was just a small skirmish, then the action of the demon race this time was a real outbreak of war. 2 million troops had been invested in this operation, and there were 1 million eternal demons lying in ambush around the culmination station. Judging from the total number of demons that had arrived in the Holy Een province, Sha Yelu had already mobilized more than half of the demon race's forces in this battle just to take down the Zhongtian station in one bite. Sha Yelu did not make a move, and neither did the other 3 demon ancestors, because they knew very well that their tasks in this battle were to command the overall situation and deal with the ancestors of the human race. The battle had just begun, and now was not the time for the ancestors of both sides to fight to the death. Moreover, it was not easy to kill an ancestor. Sha Yelu did not make a move. On the other side, Randeng Kozai and the other 3 ancestors were no longer in the Zhongtian station, but went to the central command post. In addition to the 6 stations and 3 lines of defense, the human race had also built a central command post. This central command post was located behind the 6 stations. No matter from which direction, if one wanted to attack the central command post, they would have to break through at least one of the human race's stations to get close. Therefore, there were no strong guards in the central command post, and this was where Randeng Kozai and the other 3 ancestors would only fight. Perhaps some people would ask why Randang Kozai and the other three ancestors did not directly join the battle at the front line, but instead built such a central command post. In fact, it was not difficult to understand. First of all, Randang Kozai and the other three ancestors were the strongest humans in the Sky River continent, and they were responsible for commanding the overall situation. It should be known that an army without people was like a blind man, and could not have any combat power at all. Secondly, if Randang Kozai and the other three ancestors rashly went to the battlefield, they could indeed play a great role, but on the contrary, they were likely to be surrounded and killed by the demon race. And once any one of the four ancestors was killed by the demon race, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. Not only would the morale of the human race be greatly affected, but the deterrence of the demon race would also be greatly reduced. Therefore, whether it was the ancestors of the human race or the demon race, they would not easily take action. At least, when the whereabouts of the other party's ancestors were unknown, they would not easily participate in the occupation. Don't think that the ancestors were invincible in the world. In the battle intent of hundreds or even tens of millions of people, the strength of an individual was very insignificant. Not to mention the ancestors, even quasi-sages. If you were surrounded by hundreds of thousands of the demon race army, in the face of such a large-scale battle, the ancestors were not only powerful, but more importantly, they were a symbol to their own side and a deterrent to the enemy. They had already returned to the central command post, and the saints were guarding the 6 garrisons. The sun slowly rose on a seemingly peaceful morning. The many human race cultivators in the Zhongtian garrisons also woke up from their cultivation as usual and began their daily routine. Everything was the same as usual. Not only the Zhongtian garrisons, but also the other garrisons around the Zhongtian garrisons. However, it was on this seemingly ordinary morning that the demon race army made their final preparations 100 miles away from the Zhongtian garrisons. They gave up attacking from all 4 directions at the same time and went straight to the Zhongtian garrisons. This time, the 25 saints of the demon race were in charge of attacking the Zhongtian garrisons. At the same time, Shama Xiong and the other demon race heirs also appeared. They were obviously going to participate in this battle. Everything was ready. In the 4 directions of the Zhongtian garrisons, the 4 armies of the demon race were rubbing their fists, and the leading demon race saints also shouted loudly. "Brave warriors of the demon race, let us fight to our heart's content today. Kill." Following the simple command of the demon race saints, the demon race soldiers' fighting spirit was completely ignited. Their battle cries shook the sky, and then the figures of the demon race soldiers soared into the sky, quickly rushing in the direction of the Zhongtian garrisons. The Zhongtian garrisons were located in the east of the sacred Yin prefecture. They were built on a plain, and there were no dangerous places to defend. Perhaps it was because of this that Sha Yelu set his sights on the Zhongtian garrisons. After all, compared to the Zhongtian garrisons, the other 5 garrisons of the human race were all easy to defend and hard to attack. They had a geographical advantage. Only the Zhongtian garrisons were built on a plain. In fact, the human race couldn't be blamed for not thinking it through. They really had no other choice. The east of the sacred Yin prefecture was an endless plain, and there was no place to defend. If they didn't build the Zhongtian garrisons here, it meant that the east of the sacred Yin prefecture would be undefended, and the demon race could break through the blockade at any time. Left with no other choice, the human race could only grit their teeth and build the Zhongtian garrisons on the plain. Like the demon race before, the human race cultivators in the Zhongtian garrisons were also caught off guard. Just as the sun slowly rose, and its rays shone on the earth, the outermost circle of the Zhongtian garrisons was suddenly attacked by the demon race army. In the quiet morning of a human race camp guarded by 10,000 people, a surge of demon chi suddenly swept over from the horizon. Soon, everyone saw countless demon race soldiers rushing over from the horizon. In an instant, the human half-saint in charge of guarding the camp knew that the demon race's attack had arrived. However, when he saw the densely packed demon race army in the sky, the human half-saint was still shocked. Just by looking at the number of devil race soldiers, Yang Kai could tell that there were at least 200,000 of them. With such a large-scale attack, it was impossible that they would stop at just one camp. The target of these devil race soldiers was most likely the central sky camp. It was impossible for them to mobilize over 200,000 soldiers for a mere camp guarded by 10,000 people. Seeing the demon race army getting closer and closer, the human half-saint didn't hesitate to roar to the people beside him. "Quick, prepare to meet the enemy. Also, light the smoke signal. Quick. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 886. In a large-scale battle, smoke signals were definitely the most effective and fastest means of communication. It seems simple, but in fact, it was even more useful than sound transmission talismans. Just like now, in the face of the demon race's attack, the camp immediately lit up smoke signals. Black smoke soared into the sky and could be seen even from hundreds of miles away. At the same time, the human cultivators in the camp were also engaged in a fierce battle with the demon race. At this time, not only this camp, but also from all four directions of the Zhongtian encampment, the demon race launched an attack almost simultaneously. There was no doubt that a mere camp could resist the demon race's army of more than 200,000 people. Although after the previous surprise attack, the morale of the human race had indeed been greatly boosted, but after facing the demon race, there were still a few people who were completely scared out of their wits. The camp was devastated, and in less than an hour, the first camp was breached by the demon race. Without stopping, the demon race army continued to attack the Zhongtian encampment. While the demon race army was constantly breaking through the layers of defenses of the Zhongtian encampment, the saints in the Zhongtian encampment had already seen the smoke signals in front of them. Smoke signals soared into the sky from all directions. At this time, the saints guarding the Zhongtian encampment had urgently summoned the human cultivators in the camp to reinforce the encampment in the four directions and stop the demon race's attack. Many saints had already rushed to the front line, and in the main hall, the Tianfeng saint and the other two saints also informed Randeng Kozii and the other three ancestors of the Zhongtian encampment through sound transmission talismans. After receiving the news of the Zhongtian encampment being attacked, the four ancestors quickly replied, but this reply made the faces of Prime Saint Tianfeng and the others even more solemn. According to the news from the ancestors, not only the Zhongtian encampment, the other 5 encampments of the human race were also attacked by the demon race at the same time. Is the demon race planning to start an all-out war? Are they staking it all on one throw? One of the saints asked after hearing the reply. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible to take down all 6 bases at the same time. It's impossible for the demon race to do that. Another saint immediately rejected that guess. The demon race was indeed powerful, but the Sky River continent's human race wasn't a duck on the chopping board. Therefore, the demon race knew that it was impossible for them to take down the human race's 6 bases in one go. Therefore, the demon race must have some other purpose for doing this. Of course, the human race had yet to realize that the other 5 bases were just feints. This time, the demon race's real target was the Zhongtian base. Just like what this saint said, the demons knew that they couldn't take down the 6 stations of the human race in one go. Therefore, Sha Yelu's target was only the Zhongtian station. As long as they could take down the Zhongtian station, they would have accomplished their goal. He didn't know what the demon race was planning, but now was obviously not the time to think about such things. The demon race had already launched a large-scale attack, and by now, many of the camps outside the Zhongtian camp had already been destroyed by the demon race. The news from the front lines was not optimistic at all. Let's go, now is not the time to think about this. Blocking the attack of the demon race is the most important thing. After hearing the words of the two saints, the Tianfeng saint said. Then, the three saints directly disappeared from the hall and rushed to the front lines. The human race cultivators in the Zhongtian station were split into 4 groups, each of them heading off in 4 different directions. This time, the demon race's army was attacking from all directions. The camps outside the camp obviously couldn't stop them. Only the army of the Zhongtian camp could resist them. Like the others, Xiao Chun and the others were also on their way to help. Together with them, there were 6 saints and more than 200,000 cultivators of the human race. It could be said that their momentum was extremely great. The distance of dozens of kilometers was not too far, so in less than an hour, Xiao Chun and the others met the demon race army head-on. The sky was densely packed with figures. The total number of people on both sides had already reached 500,000, and this was only one of the battlefields. Looking at the large number of demon race soldiers opposite them, a trace of seriousness appeared on the faces of all the cultivators of the human race. The counterattack of the demon race was indeed too sudden, and their attacks were extremely ferocious. From the time they received the news to the time they rushed over to help, the response of the Zhongtian camp was already very fast. It took less than 2 hours, but in this short period of time, the demon race army had already broken through 5 camps of the Zhongtian camp, and this was only the result of one demon race army. The 2 armies faced each other. Both sides were led by saints, so there was no need for unnecessary words. The saints of both sides looked at each other and then shouted coldly and angrily at the same time. Kill! This battle was no longer a small skirmish like before. It could be said that it was the first direct battle between the human race and the demon race. Accompanied by the angry roars of the saints of both sides, the human race and the demon race army charged at each other at the same time, like a torrent of steel, fiercely colliding with each other. In the human race army, Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls were by Xiao Chen's side. As for Chun Ling and Long Qin, they had gone to another battlefield and were not with Xiao Chen. Be careful. In such a chaotic battle, Xiao Chen naturally could not take care of everything, so he reminded the 3 girls to be careful. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the 3 girls nodded. They were not vases, and their strength was not much weaker than Xiao Chen's. The moment the 2 armies collided, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru were instantly separated. At this moment, Xiao Chun had already charged into the demon race army. Indeed, the skilled were bold. Xiao Chun did not care about being surrounded by the demon race. He held the ink dragon sword tightly in his hand. When the demon race saw that a human like Xiao Chun dared to charge into the army, they all charged forward with overflowing killing intent. Xiao Chun charged straight into the army of the devil race. He did so to reduce the pressure on the other human warriors. Before coming, the Tianfeng saint had told Xiao Chun that in terms of individual strength, the human race was indeed weaker than the demon race. Therefore, in order to ensure the victory of this battle, the Tianfeng saint hoped that Xiao Chun could attract more of the demon race's attention. Xiao Chun was not an ordinary human cultivator. Even if he faced a demon race cultivator of the same cultivation level, he would not have any problems. Therefore, if Xiao Chun could attract more demon race cultivators, it would greatly reduce the pressure on the other human cultivators. Xiao Chun did not refuse the Tianfeng saint's decision. Although it was very dangerous, with Xiao Chun's strength, it was absolutely no problem for him to escape if he could not win. Unless a demon race saint intervened, otherwise, even a half-saint would not be able to stop Xiao Chun. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 887. Xiao Chun alone attracted the firepower of at least 100 devil warriors. Not only him, but also Qin Shuru and the other 2 women. They were all outstanding talents of the human clan, so they naturally had to work harder than ordinary warriors. There was no other way. Compared to the devil clan, the human clan was already at a disadvantage. They could only make full use of the powerful fighting strength of the human clan's geniuses to make up for it. The human race was a very polarized race. Ordinary warriors were very weak, but geniuses like Shao Qin were very strong. Unlike the devil race, the strength of the devil race was generally very equal, except for the devil race. The strength of the devil race was not very strong, but it was also not very weak. Because of this, ordinary humans were no match for the devil race at all. Furthermore, geniuses like Shao Qin and the others were able to kill the devil race even though they were at a higher level. Therefore, geniuses like Shao Qin had to put in more effort to fight against the devil race. The more devil race they killed, the less pressure the humans would feel. Surrounded by hundreds of devils, Shao Qin did not change his expression at all. He slashed out with the Black Dragon sword in his hand and directly used the Thunderclap 9 swords. He used a killing move as soon as he attacked. This was a battlefield, not the usual martial arts arena in the sect. On the battlefield, the only goal was to kill the enemy in front of you as soon as possible without wasting your own spiritual power. The reason was very simple. The martial arts arena was a one-on-one battle, so fairness was important. On the battlefield, you had to face not only one enemy, but thousands of enemies. There was no fairness on the battlefield. Only results and life and death were important. Therefore, fighting on the battlefield was completely different from fighting in the martial arts arena. The most important point of fighting on the battlefield was how to kill the most enemies with the least consumption. Therefore, those flashy martial arts skills were not suitable on the battlefield at all. There was nothing fancy about it. Every slash of the sword carried an incomparably dense killing intent. With every slash of the sword, a demon would fall along with it. At this moment, the 1-meter-long sword in his hand seemed to have become the scythe of the Grim Reaper. In the face of such a big battle, Shao Qin was not the least bit timid. Instead, he appeared very experienced. Even those semi-saints could not compare with him in this aspect. This was not the first time Shao Qin was involved in a war. Back in the heavenly Qin continent, Shao Qin had personally experienced a war with demonic cultivators. Although there was no way to compare that war to this one, Shao Qin was no stranger to war. It was also not his first time on the battlefield. Therefore, Shao Qin was much more experienced in handling various matters. Lightning flashed everywhere. Every strike of the Thunderclap 9 swords was accompanied by a sudden flash of lightning. Don't underestimate these lightning flashes. They were extremely powerful. Even if a demon of the same realm as Shao Qin was hit by one of these lightning flashes, he would definitely be seriously injured even if he didn't die. It had to be said that this time, the army of the devil race was clearly not comparable to the army of the devil race in the previous encampments. The difference in strength was like heaven and earth. If it were those devils in the outer encampments, Shao Qin would have already killed them like chopping melons and vegetables. But now, after a bitter battle, Shao Qin only killed more than 20 devils. It could be seen that these devils were indeed not weak. This time, the devil army in charge of attacking the Zhongtian encampment was an elite army arranged by Xia Yelute. Every devil was a brave warrior. Their cultivation was much higher than the devils in the outer encampment. It was precisely because they were facing the real elite army of the devil race that the human clan was under great pressure. Not only Shao Qin, but also the other saints. At this time, they were fighting fiercely with the devils. Both sides were equally matched. However, as Tianfeng Saint said, once one reached the saint realm, the gap between the human clan and the devil clan would be completely closed. Therefore, it seemed that the battle between the saints would not end in a short time. Shao Qin was not worried about the result of the battle between the saints. Shao Qin was only thinking about the matter at hand at this time. This was to be expected. In a battle of such a scale, Shao Qin alone would not be able to change anything. Instead of thinking about those irrelevant things, he would rather focus on his own task. After all, every time he killed a demon, it meant that the human race would have one less enemy. Xiao Chun did not pay any attention to what was going on in other places at all. All he could think about was the battle before him. As the battle continued, more and more of the hundreds of demons that had besieged Xiao Chun died. Although these devils were not weak, there was still a gap between them and Xiao Chun. More and more devils died under Xiao Chun's sword. At the same time, Xiao Chun's battle attracted the attention of a devil. Just like Xiao Chun, this devil was also killing human clan warriors. Ordinary human clan warriors were no match for this devil. After smashing the human clan warrior in front of him with a punch, the devil turned to look at Xiao Chun with a glint of fighting spirit in his eyes. Interesting. With that, the devil rushed toward Xiao Chun without hesitation. Originally, Xiao Chun was going to kill a devil with a single slash, but at the last moment, he was blocked by this devil who rushed toward him rapidly. Seeing this devil, the other devils' faces changed slightly. Then, they saluted respectfully and called out, "Devil son, that's right." This devil who rushed toward him was one of the 4 devil sons of Xiaolu, Sha Mo. Among the 4 devil sons of Xiaolu, Sha Mo was the youngest and had the lowest cultivation level. However, he was the most talented. Like Xiao Chun, Sha Mo's cultivation level was at the complete Dao Master realm. After blocking Xiao Chun's attack, Sha Mo shouted coldly, "Get out of here." Hearing this, the surrounding devils did not dare to complain. In an instant, they dispersed and went to find other opponents. Soon, only Xiao Chun and Sha Mo were left standing facing each other. Xiao Chun felt pressure from Sha Mo. This devil in front of him was obviously different from the other devils. At least in terms of strength, they could not be mentioned in the same breath. Xiao Chun felt that Sha Mo was different, and Sha Mo also felt that Xiao Chun was different. At the same time, Sha Mo vaguely guessed Xiao Chun's identity. Sha Mo revealed a sinister smile and said with a chuckle, "I heard that the top figures of the human clan are called Holy Sons. You should be one of them, right?" Sha Mo had heard of the Holy Sons. Judging from Xiao Chun's combat strength, Sha Mo guessed that Xiao Chun should be one of the Holy Sons of the human clan. In an instant, Sha Mo was full of fighting spirit. He was called the Devil Son and was one of the top figures of the Devil Clan. Therefore, he naturally wanted to compete with the Holy Sons of the human clan. Please collect, vote, recommend. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.